Chapter 2012. After Heaven's Loathsome left, Yi Xian looked at Bai Xiao. Miss Bai Xiao, she might not let you leave this banished land alive. Bai Xiao smiled. It seems that I can only follow young Master Yi for the time being. Then, she smiled mischievously. Young Master Yi, please don't refuse. Otherwise, I'll really be bullied by that bad woman. Yi Xian smiled. Then, Miss Bai Xiao can stay in my Xiao Ta. Bai Xiao bowed slightly. Thank you. Yi Xian smiled. I'm going to cultivate. Then, he sat down cross-legged and continued to comprehend. Bai Xiao reminded him, you can use the inheritance I gave you. That way, it'll be easier for you to break the circle. Yi Xian opened his eyes and looked at the scroll in his hand. After a while, he smiled. I want to try it myself. Try it himself. Qing could break the circle on her own. Sister Nian could do the same. Why couldn't he? He wanted to try it himself. Sometimes, the Tao that he walked was different from the Tao of others. Previously, he had been using other people's inheritance. Now, he wanted to try it himself. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Bai Xiao's eyes flashed with surprise. She didn't say anything and left quietly. On the mountain peak, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and continued to comprehend. Bai Xiao didn't leave Xiao Ta. Instead, she wandered around in Xiao Ta. It had to be said that she was shocked. With her strength, she had naturally discovered the extraordinariness of this small tower. The time inside was different from the outside world. Bai Xiao said softly, the flow of time. This person can actually suppress the flow of time. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. As if she thought of something, Bai Xiao left Xiao Ta. Outside Xiao Ta, she saw Heaven's Loathsome. Heaven's Loathsome didn't leave. She didn't dare to touch Yi Xian, but she didn't care about Bai Xiao. Bai Xiao looked at Heaven Vexation. Heaven Vexation, I think you were right about one thing. You said that the Heaven-forsaken tribe lost back then because they were arrogant. However, you still haven't learned your lesson. Heaven Loathsome was expressionless. Are you lecturing me? Bai Xiao shook her head. I wouldn't dare. Tian Yen, as far as I know, young Master Yi wanted to work with you previously. However, you were very disdainful of him. Why were you disdainful? Because you feel that he doesn't have the qualifications to cooperate with you. In other words, he doesn't deserve to negotiate with you. So, not only did you ignore him, you even humiliated him. Heaven's Loathsome suddenly interrupted him. Don't be a hindsight. Let me ask you, if the person behind him hadn't appeared, would you have licked him? Really? Bai Xiao was silent. Heaven's Hater mocked, you're sucking up to him now because you know he has a super big shot behind him. If he didn't, would you, Bai Xiao, look at an ant who couldn't even break the circle? Bai Xiao shook her head and smiled. Heaven's Hater, you're wrong. Actually, you've underestimated young Master Yi. Heaven's Hater was expressionless. Have I underestimated him? Or have you overestimated him? Bai Xiao smiled. Heaven's Hater, when we were at our realm, were you confident you could defeat him? Why are you using your current realm to measure his current realm? Were you really better than him when you were at his realm? Heaven's Hater didn't speak. Bai Xiao continued, you had a better choice. For example, you could have chosen to be friends with him. If that was the case, we would be the ones panicking. Unfortunately, you didn't do that. So, you're panicking now. Heaven's Hater glanced at Bai Xiao. I don't dare to kill him, but the person behind him didn't want to interfere in our matter. Moreover, according to my guess, the reason why the person behind him let him stay here is to train him. In other words, as long as I don't kill him, I'll be fine. If I make him suffer a little, the person behind him might be happier. As she said that, she raised a finger. As long as I control the limit, I'll be fine. What do you think? Hearing that, Bai Xiao narrowed her eyes. Heaven's hater smiled. You'd better stay in his Xiao Ta forever. After saying that, her body gradually turned illusory. Bai Xiao was silent for a moment. She shook her head with a smile and turned to leave. Inside the Xiao Ta, Yi Xian was still meditating. Break the circle. At that moment, he understood what a circle was. The so-called circle was actually no state. To be more precise, it was a realm. People in the world cultivated realms, but they were also bound by realms. That was because realms were equivalent to a frame that trapped people in it. In other words, cultivating Tao would eventually be bound by Tao. How to get out of this frame? Yi Xian frowned slightly at the thought of this. He understood what a circle was, but now, there was a problem. How to break this circle? Yi Xian fell into deep thought. It was easy to know the circle, but difficult to break it. Time passed bit by bit. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly frowned. Why did he have to break the circle himself? Why didn't he let Qing help him break the circle? At that thought, he took out the green profound sword. After a moment, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and the green profound sword in his hand began to tremble violently. Break the circle. Breaking the circle by oneself was one way, but getting others to help you break the circle was also another way. In other words, walking directly into the circle of others meant walking into another circle that was even stronger than the one before. In his opinion, even if he broke the circle, he would still be in someone else's circle. If that was the case, why not find a bigger circle and jump into it himself? In this world, Qing's circle was definitely powerful. If he could enter her circle, even those who broke the circle would not be able to do anything to him. After all, this was Qing's circle. At that thought, Yi Xian was a little excited. At that moment, he had a goal and was no longer lost. What he needed to do next was to find a way to enter Qing's circle. Actually, it was not difficult because he had the green profound sword. He could borrow the green profound sword to enter Qing's circle. If others broke the circle, Yi Xian would borrow the circle. This was actually a brand new way of cultivation. Of course, he might be the only one who could cultivate because he had the circle to borrow. One's thinking determines one's height. Yi Xian looked at the green profound sword in his hand. The green profound sword trembled slightly, and in the next moment, the green profound sword turned into countless sword rays. Gradually, the sword rays converged into the woman in the plain dress. Qing. At that moment, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. In his mind, the scene where Qing once appeared. Qing. What was her Tao? Yi Xian did not know. Of course, he had no intention of walking on Qing's Tao. What he needed to do was simple: enter Qing's circle. To enter Qing's circle, he must achieve two things. First, he must have a medium. He could not enter just by thinking about it. Second, Qing must not oppose it. A medium? He naturally knew that it was the green profound sword. The green profound sword was personally forged by Qing. It contained her own power and Tao. Using the green profound sword as a medium was the most suitable. As for the second point, why would Qing oppose him? In the middle of the field, Yi Xian's eyes were closed. In his mind, bits and pieces of Qing's past appeared. Just like that, time passed bit by bit. In front of him, the Qing that was formed from sword rays suddenly turned into dots of sword rays and disappeared into his forehead. When the last dot of sword rays entered Yi Xian's body, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! The space-time in front of Yi Xian shattered. At this time, Xiao Ta was horrified. Young lord, don't do anything rash. Yi Xian slowly opened his right hand and lightly wiped it. The shattered spacetime was restored. At this time, Xiaota said, "Young lord, have you entered Sister Tianming's circle?" The corner of Yi Xian's mouth curled up into a smile. Gradually, the smile widened. Xiaota suddenly said, "Young lord, your smile is so perverted." Yi Xian, circle. Ignoring Xiaota, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He had entered Qing's circle. After entering Qing's circle, he suddenly realized that this circle was so big that he could not feel the end. Before this, he had also been in the circle, but compared to Qing, it was like. No, there was no comparison at all. After he entered Qing's circle, he felt that he was alone in the depths of the vast universe. This circle was boundless and there was no end to it. Breaking the circle? Strictly speaking, he was not breaking the circle. He had just left his small circle and entered an invincible big circle. Of course, at this moment, his strength had also changed dramatically. Not only his strength, but his sword Dao had also changed dramatically. Breaking the circle. His current sword Dao was also different from before. He defined it as entering the circle. At this moment, he realized that he was truly above the space-time Dao. Not only that, but when he looked back, he realized that the inaction realm expert was like a child. He also understood why he could not fight back in front of that heaven loathsome. They were really not on the same level. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. At this moment, the green profound sword changed again. The sword became stronger because of the person. After he transformed, the green profound sword would change as well. Now, both he and the green profound sword had changed dramatically. At this moment, Bai Xiao appeared in front of Yi Xian. There was a flash of surprise in her eyes. "You broke through?" Yi Xian nodded. Bai Xiao smiled, "Congratulations." Yi Xian looked at Bai Xiao, "Miss Bai Xiao, do you want to spar?" Bai Xiao blinked, "Are you sure?" Yi Xian smiled, "Yes." Bai Xiao nodded, "Okay." With that, the two left Xiaota and came to an unknown mysterious spacetime. Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian, "Make your move." Yi Xian flicked his sleeves. Pust. A sword slashed at Bai Xiao. Bai Xiao put her fingers together and pointed forward. Boom! The sword light shattered. The next moment, Bai Xiao was sent flying thousands of feet away. Not only that, but the moment she stopped, 2 of her fingers were cut off. "I've been working hard to save some manuscripts. I've saved some. Everyone, wait for me to break out." Chapter 2013. She was stunned. Bai Xiao was stunned. What's going on? In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was calm as if he'd expected this. The green profound sword had been remodeled by Qing Air. Especially the tip of the sword, it contained the mysterious energy of Qing Air. Even though Bai Xiao was formidable, it didn't mean that she could disregard the green profound sword. Bai Xiao gazed at Yi Xian, "Young Master Yi, you and your sword shocked me." Yi Xian smiled, "Why?" Bai Xiao spoke in a low voice, "Even though you're the one who broke the circle now, your current strength is still insufficient to harm me under normal circumstances. Because I'm the one who drew the circle. So, theoretically speaking, it's impossible for your sword to break through my laws. But not only did your sword break through my laws just now, it even injured me." As she spoke, she gazed at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. "It's your sword." Yi Xian smiled, "Then I won't try using my sword. What do you think?" Bai Xiao nodded, "All right." With a thought from Yi Xian, the Qingxian sword vanished, and he took a step forward. With this step, a ray of sword light flashed across the battlefield. In the distance, Bai Xiao stretched out her right hand and suddenly clenched it. She actually grabbed Yi Xian's sword light. However, her expression changed in the next moment. Bang! The sword light shattered, and Bai Xiao retreated by over 1 kilometer. However, she hadn't even stopped when Yi Xian suddenly pressed his fingers together and slashed diagonally towards Bai Xiao from afar. Hiss! A strand of sword light slashed down from above Bai Xiao's head. It was so swift that it couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Bai Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly. She opened her palm and pressed it down lightly. In an instant, a mysterious barrier appeared around her. Bang! The space around Bai Xiao trembled slightly, and the strand of sword light vanished without a trace. However, Bai Xiao was completely fine. But right at this moment, strand after strand of sword light slashed down towards her like a storm. Sword energy like rain. Boom 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 boom, rays of sword light shattered ceaselessly, and Bai Xiao retreated again and again. When the last ray of sword light shattered and was obliterated, Bai Xiao had already retreated an entire 30 kilometers away. As soon as she stopped, Yi Xian suddenly charged forward, and in the next moment, a sword slashed directly in front of Bai Xiao. Boom! Bai Xiao instantly retreated tens of thousands of feet, but Yi Xian was still unable to break her barrier. Yi Xian didn't attack again because he had already used all his strength in that strike. In the distance, Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian with a trace of seriousness in the depths of her eyes. At this moment, she was extremely shocked. Even though Yi Xian wasn't able to break her barrier, Yi Xian was able to force her back a few 100,000 feet. Logically speaking, this was absolutely impossible. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Bai Xiao, what defense is this?" Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian. "It's my own Dao technique barrier, an exclusive special ability of the person who draws circles. This isn't something that can be broken by someone who draws circles because the Dao technique contained within it has far surpassed the spacetime Dao." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Can I try using the green profound sword?" Bai Xiao thought for a moment and nodded. "Sure." Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, the sword vanished. A sword suddenly slashed down in front of Bai Xiao. Boom! Spacetime suddenly caved in front of Bai Xiao, and then a mysterious force suddenly shattered. Boom! Bai Xiao was directly forced back 30 kilometers. It was broken. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his hand. He looked at the distant Bai Xiao, and her expression was extremely solemn. "With this sword, you can already fight against the person who breaks the circle." At this moment, her heart was like a raging sea. Terrifying. That was how she felt at this moment. Even in the universe origin world, the most monstrous genius couldn't fight against the person who draws circles by breaking circles. But Yi Xian could. Of course, he had to include the sword in Yi Xian's hand. However, even without the sword, Yi Xian could actually fight against the person who draws circles, but he could only barely do so. But with the green profound sword, it would be completely different. With the green profound sword, Yi Xian had a chance to kill the person who breaks the circle. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Bai Xiao, Heaven Vexation is a person who draws circles. Is she stronger than you?" Bai Xiao nodded. "Much stronger than me." Yi Xian was slightly curious. "Can you tell me in detail?" Bai Xiao smiled and said, "Be it breaking circles or drawing circles, they are divided into the inner circle and the outer circle. Heaven Vexation and I are both people who draw circles, but she is in the inner circle and I am in the outer circle. Apart from that, every person who draws circles has a different Dao. For example, some people who draw circles are swordsmen, and swordsmen's combat power is naturally stronger. In any case, there are many factors that determine a person's combat power." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." With that said, he paused slightly and asked again, "Can I fight against Heaven Vexation now?" Bai Xiao hesitated and shook her head. "It's difficult." Yi Xian smiled. "It's all right. Take your time. Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, do you want to go to the universe origin world? Yi Xian frowned slightly. The universe origin world? Bai Xiao nodded. It's a big stage, suitable for a super monster like you. Yi Xian smiled. If I bring you to the universe origin world, will heaven vexation stop us? Bai Xiao smirked. Definitely. Yi Xian smiled. If we join forces, can we fight against her? Bai Xiao still shook her head. No. That's because she's not the only person from the Heaven-Forsaken clan. She's undoubtedly the strongest in the Heaven-Forsaken clan, but the others aren't weak either, especially the Heaven-Forsaken battle god. His combat power is terrifying. Yi Xian was a little curious. The Heaven-Forsaken battle god? Bai Xiao nodded. A very powerful person. Back then, this person fought against 6 powerhouses from the Heaven-Forsaken clan alone and didn't lose. Yi Xian suddenly asked, can he beat my sister? Bai Xiao's expression froze. She shook her head and smiled bitterly. Young Master Yi, your question. Heaven Vexation doesn't even have the strength to fight back in front of your sister. Isn't this Heaven-Forsaken battle god just sending himself to death in front of your sister? Yi Xian, Bai Xiao smiled. Young Master Yi, are you interested in going to the universe origin world? Yi Xian said, do you have a way to deal with that woman? Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian. If young Master Yi wants to go, I'll think of a way to deal with that woman. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Miss Bai Xiao, you're the one who wants to return to the universe origin world, right? Bai Xiao blinked. Of course, it's on the way. Yi Xian laughed. Miss Bai Xiao, you're really interesting. I've received benefits from you before. I feel that I shouldn't accept undeserved rewards. If Miss Bai Xiao needs my help, I'm willing to help. This woman was really bad. She was the one who wanted to go back. Bai Xiao smiled. Then, young Master Yi, please send me off. Yi Xian nodded. All right. With that, the two left Xiao Ta. Bai Xiao looked up. She flicked her sleeves and a space-time tunnel appeared in the sky. Bai Xiao pointed at the space-time tunnel. I can leave once I enter it. Yi Xian said solemnly, then why don't you open the space-time tunnel in front of you? Why do you have to go so far? Bai Xiao roared with laughter. Young Master Yi, what you're paying attention to is really interesting. Let me tell you, it's useless no matter where I open it because that woman will forcefully enter and stop me. I can only leave safely if someone stops her. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I can only stop one circle drawing expert. Bai Xiao nodded. That's enough. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly shot into the sky. Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared before the space-time tunnel. It was Heaven Hateful. Heaven Hateful gazed at Bai Xiao. You want to go back? Bai Xiao smiled. Yes. As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly gazed at Heaven Hateful. Let's fight again. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure shook and vanished on the spot. Hiss. A strand of sword light suddenly shot explosively into the sky. In the sky, Heaven Hateful's eyes narrowed slightly as she suddenly clamped down with the fingers of her right hand. Bang! The strand of sword light was instantly clamped down. But in the next moment, her pupils constricted, and she hurriedly let go of it and moved over 10 kilometers back. When she stopped moving, blood was slowly seeping out from between her fingers. Heaven Hateful's eyes narrowed slightly when she witnessed this scene, and then she looked up at Yi Xian, break the circle. Yi Xian didn't waste his breath. The green sword in his hand suddenly vanished on the spot. Heaven Hateful smashed her fist forward. Bang! The green sword was obstructed. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when Heaven Hateful suddenly stretched out her right hand and grabbed the hilt of the green sword. In an instant, she'd appeared in front of Yi Xian, and then she swung her sword down. It was extremely swift. However, Yi Xian actually didn't dodge at all, and he just allowed it to strike his head. Heaven Hateful's eyes narrowed slightly when the green sword came into contact with Yi Xian's head, and she was about to retreat. Because she had a bad feeling. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly charged forward, and his right leg kicked towards Heaven Hateful's stomach. At practically the exact same moment, Heaven Hateful abandoned the green sword and swung her right fist forward. Bang! Bang! With two muffled sounds, Heaven Hater and Yi Xian were sent flying at the same time. Yi Xian was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away, while Heaven Hater was sent flying less than 3,000 feet back. Yi Xian's body had vanished when he stopped moving. That punch from before had shattered his body. Moreover, his knee hadn't been able to shatter Heaven Hateful's body. On the other side, Bai Xiao had stopped moving as well. A man with white hair stood before her, and he had his hands behind his back. An expert who drew circles. Both of them hadn't attacked. At this moment, there were over 10 extremely powerful auras around Bai Xiao, and 9 of them were the auras of the people who drew circles. Yi Xian had sensed this as well. Needless to say, he was shocked. There were actually over 10 experts who drew circles here. This heaven-abandoned race was truly extraordinary. Most importantly, Heaven Hateful had suffered a great loss when he'd chosen to go head-on against Heaven Hateful. Heaven Hateful was stronger than him, so he would only suffer if he went head-on against Heaven Hateful. Heaven Hateful glanced coldly at Yi Xian. "You've surprised me quite a bit. I never expected that you would be able to break through the circle in such a short period of time. Moreover, your combat strength is so formidable." As she spoke, she turned to look at Bai Xiao. "Foolish woman, do you think you can survive by relying on King Reliance? Even he has to rely on others, so how can you rely on him?" Bai Xiao glanced at Heaven Hateful. "The word between your brows is really pretty." Yi Xian was speechless. This woman. She intends to hold on to that for the rest of her life. Chapter 2014. Heaven Loathsome's face sank when she heard Bai Xiao's words. She glanced at the white-haired man in the distance. "Stop King Kaoshan." When she spoke up to hear, she paused for a moment and said, "Don't kill him." Then she turned and walked towards Bai Xiao. "Woman, I'll tear your mouth apart later." Bai Xiao smiled. "Bring it on." As soon as she finished speaking, her body suddenly became illusory. In the next moment, a tree actually appeared within her body. Heaven Loathsome narrowed her eyes. "Divine Wilderness Ancient Tree." Bai Xiao smiled. "Why would I be here if I didn't have some ability? Heaven Loathsome, I'll wait for you in Eternity Dimension." She looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, until we meet again." Then she turned and walked towards the space-time tunnel. Heaven Loathsome didn't stop her. Yi Xian glanced at Heaven Loathsome. He was curious. Why didn't this woman stop Bai Xiao? Was it because of the Divine Wilderness Ancient Tree? Bai Xiao vanished from the space-time tunnel completely. Heaven Loathsome turned to look at Yi Xian. She just stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian turned and left. The white-haired man stood in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly turned and walked to Heaven Loathsome. He opened his arms. "Come, kill me." Heaven Loathsome glared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian approached Heaven Loathsome and said seriously, "I'm begging for death." The white-haired man clenched his right fist and punched at Yi Xian. He had just come out of seclusion, so he didn't know what had happened. The white-haired man punched, but Yi Xian didn't dodge. If the punch landed, his soul would be destroyed. Just as the white-haired man's punch was about to land on Yi Xian's head, Heaven Loathsome flicked her sleeve. Boom! The white-haired man was sent flying thousands of feet away. The white-haired man looked at Heaven Loathsome in confusion. Heaven Loathsome didn't explain. She looked at Yi Xian and gave him a thumbs up. You have guts. With that, she turned around and left. Yi Xian shrugged and turned to leave. After Yi Xian left, the white-haired man approached Heaven Loathsome and bowed slightly. Ancient Flamen, why didn't you kill him? Tian Yen was expressionless. If I kill him, my heaven-forsaken tribe will be gone. The white-haired man was stunned. How could that be? Heaven Loathsome turned to look at the white-haired man. Tian K, don't touch him. With that, she turned around and disappeared into the distance. Tian K fell silent. After returning to Dao Ling Palace, Yi Xian went straight to Xiao Ta. Yi Xian's expression was a little ugly. His body was gone. In the previous battle with Heaven Loathsome, he had been completely crushed in terms of battle awareness and power. The other party was willing to injure him in exchange for his life. It had to be said that there was still quite a gap between him and this heaven hatred. Unless he used the power of his bloodline and the Qingxian sword, he might not be able to truly fight it. However, this time's failure was also a great harvest. Every time he fought, he would gain something. Because every time he failed, he would be able to find out what he was lacking. Yi Xian began to repair his body. A day later, Yi Xian's body was repaired. He left Xiao Ta. As soon as he left Xiao Ta, Dao Ling appeared before him. Dao Ling's expression was extremely solemn. Something big is happening in the heavenly tomb. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Something big? Dao Ling nodded and pointed to the ground. Feel it. Yi Xian looked down at the ground. A moment later, he frowned again. He realized that the ground was shaking. Not just the ground, but the surrounding space was also trembling slightly. Dao Ling said in a low voice, I suspect that woman wants to destroy this alternate world. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, I'll go take a look. With that, he went straight to the heavenly tomb. At that moment, the entire heaven-forsaken clan was gathered in front of the sacrificial altar. Heaven Hatred stood on the sacrificial altar, her hands forming a strange hand seal as she muttered something. Yi Xian's arrival also attracted the attention of the heaven-forsaken clan's experts. When they saw Yi Xian, the heaven-forsaken clan's experts all had complicated expressions. King Kaoshan was here again. They naturally wanted nothing more than to eat Yi Xian's flesh and drink his blood. However, they did not dare to attack Yi Xian. The woman in the plain dress was the nightmare of the heaven-forsaken clan. On that day, as long as Yi Xian nodded, the sword would fall, and the once glorious and invincible heaven-forsaken clan would completely disappear. At that moment, Heaven Hatred opened her eyes on the sacrificial altar. She looked at Yi Xian without saying anything. Yi Xian stared at Heaven Hatred. What do you want? Heaven Hatred was expressionless. What does it have to do with you? Yi Xian smiled. If you want to destroy this banished lands, then I have to remind you that this place is related to Qing. If you destroy this place, I cannot guarantee that she will not appear. Heaven Hatred stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Do you only know how to use her to threaten me? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, then can you give me some face and not destroy this place? Heaven Hatred looked at Yi Xian. Do you think that you have enough face? Yi Xian shrugged. Then destroy it. Once you are destroyed, Qing will definitely appear. Do you want to take a gamble? Use the lives of your entire clan to do so. If she appears, then I will definitely nod this time. Nod. Heaven Hatred's expression suddenly turned ugly. It should be said that it was slightly ferocious. At that time, the woman in a plain dress had asked Yi Xian if he wanted to destroy the Forsaken clan. If he had nodded, then the Forsaken clan would have vanished from this world. To the Forsaken clan, this was simply an extraordinary humiliation. Heaven hatred stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and the killing intent in his eyes wasn't concealed at all. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Heaven Hatred, are you trying to kill me? Heaven Hatred ridiculed. How could I dare? King Kaoshan. Yi Xian glanced at the members of the Forsaken clan. They were all looking at Yi Xian with undisguised killing intent in their eyes. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed when he saw this. At this moment, he suddenly realized that not interfering in the Forsaken clan's affairs seemed to be a mistake. Suddenly, a woman from the Forsaken clan walked forward. She looked 60 to 70% similar to Heaven Hatred. She walked over to Yi Xian and grinned. Young Master Yi, the Forsaken clan will not destroy this abandoned land. Yi Xian looked at the woman. You are? The woman smiled. Heaven Hatred is my older sister. I'm Fekta. As she spoke, she walked over to Heaven Hatred's side, took his hand, and said, Young Master Yi, there was no enmity between us. The reason it has come to this is actually a misunderstanding. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, we shouldn't continue being enemies. Young Master Yi doesn't want this world to vanish, and the Forsaken clan is willing to give Young Master Yi face. We will absolutely not destroy this world, nor will we be hostile towards Young Master Yi. Young Master Yi can rest assured about this. Yi Xian smiled. You seem to be different from your sister. Fekta grinned. My sister is more impatient. Yi Xian glanced at the silent Heaven Hatred, then turned and left. No one stopped Yi Xian. Soon, Yi Xian disappeared into the horizon. After Yi Xian left, everyone looked at Fekta. Some of the Forsaken clan members were displeased. They were very unhappy that Fekta had shown weakness to Yi Xian just now. Fekta said softly, up until now, he hasn't wanted to get involved in the matters between us and the Divine Wilderness race, while we, the Forsaken clan, are constantly hostile towards him. I would like to ask my clansmen, if he really joins forces with the Divine Wilderness race to deal with us, what should we do? As she said this, she suddenly roared, What should we do? This roar was completely different from its previous gentleness. What should we do? This roar was like a thunderclap. Fekta looked coldly at the Forsaken clan experts around her. Look at him. Your eyes are filled with killing intent. Let me ask you, he is lying here. Do you dare to kill him? Do you? Everyone was silent. Fekta continued, Up until now, we are not willing to admit a fact. Or rather, we are all avoiding this fact. What is the truth? That is, the Forsaken clan is no match for her. Our entire Forsaken clan is nothing more than a sword strike in front of the plain-dressed woman. If that's the case, what right do we have to be enemies with Yi Xian? Everyone's expressions turned ugly, including Heaven Hatred's. Fekta shook her head slightly. We can't beat the plain-dressed woman, but we are constantly making enemies with Yi Xian. I really don't understand why we are doing this. Is it because of our Forsaken clan's arrogance? But does our Forsaken clan have the right to be arrogant in front of the plain-dressed woman? The strongest person in the history of the universe Yuan world is just a circle-drawing person. What about the plain-dressed woman? Her strength is at least above that circle-drawing person. As she said this, she looked at the crowd again. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but our Forsaken clan is like an ant in front of that woman. If she hadn't wanted to train Yi Xian, our Forsaken clan would have been destroyed. There was a deathly silence. At this moment, Fekta looked at Heaven Hatred. Sister, I know you can't accept this and you dislike Yi Xian even more. However, you have to understand that we really can't offend him. Once he joins the Divine Wilderness race, we will be in a very passive position. Don't provoke this fellow again. Heaven Hatred slowly closed her eyes. Actually, how could she not know what Fekta had said? However, she really disliked Yi Xian. An ant had provoked her time and again. What right did he have to provoke her? What right did he have to provoke her? The plain-dressed woman. Heaven hatred suddenly opened her eyes. Fekta, you are right. As she spoke, she looked at the space-time tunnel in the sky. She opened her palm, and behind her, the altar suddenly trembled violently. In the next moment, the altar suddenly erupted with an extremely terrifying black pillar of light that shot into the sky. This black pillar of light directly entered the space-time tunnel. Heaven Hatred's eyes flashed with hostility. Let's go. As soon as she said this, she turned into a stream of light and entered the space-time tunnel through the black pillar of light. Behind her were countless Forsaken clan experts. The entire clan had left. As for the altar, it was continuously absorbing the spirit energy of the entire heavenly tomb. However, it did not absorb the spirit energy outside the heavenly tomb, because if it absorbed the spirit energy from the heavenly tomb, the entire world would be gone. Soon, all the Forsaken clan experts had disappeared. The alternate world returned to peace. In Dao Ling Palace, Yi Xian looked in the direction of the heavenly tomb. He knew that a huge battle was about to begin. At this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw the woman. The person who had come was Yi Ling. When he saw Yi Ling, Yi Xian was completely dumbfounded. This was because Yi Ling was only left with a spirit body. What had happened? It's too difficult to save a manuscript. Chapter 2015. The moment he saw Yi Ling, Yi Xian's expression changed. Yi Ling's soul was all that was left. After all, Yi Ling was Sister Nian's follower. Did something happen to Sister Nian? At this moment, Yi Ling said in a trembling voice, "Brother, something happened." Something happened. Hearing this, Yi Xian's heart sank, and he quickly said, "Don't panic, tell me slowly." But Yi Ling grabbed Yi Xian's hand. "Go save Sister An and Sister Wuxia." After saying this, she turned around and left with Yi Xian. Yi Xian quickly opened his palm, and the green profound sword entered Yi Ling's body and began to nourish Yi Ling's soul. On the way, Yi Xian said, "Ling, what happened? Where's Sister Nian? Don't tell me something happened to Sister Nian." In his heart, as long as Qing, and the others did not make a move, Sister Nian was invincible. Yi Ling wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian did not frown. What happened? Yi Ling said softly, "Sister Nian disappeared." Yi Xian said, "What do you mean?" Yi Ling shook her head. "I don't know either. After Sister Nian brought us to the universe realm, she discovered something and said she was going out. But she never returned." Universe realm. Yi Xian frowned again. He did not expect Sister Nian and the others to go to the universe realm. Yi Ling continued, "After Sister Nian left, we searched everywhere for her. Then we met the Ancient Star Clan. The Ancient Star Clan's young clan leader wanted to pursue Sister An, but she rejected him. So he kept looking for trouble with us." Hearing this, Yi Xian's face instantly turned gloomy. At this time, Yi Ling said, "During a conflict, Sister An and Sister Wuxia stopped them and let me go first." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian and said, "They outnumber us, and Sister Nian isn't here. We're no match for them. Are Wuxia and Xiaofan all right?" Yi Xian asked. Yi Ling shook his head. "I don't know." As she spoke, she hurriedly said, "We have to hurry over." Yi Xian suddenly passed the green profound sword to Yi Ling. "Recall the universe origin realm in your mind." Yi Ling was a little confused, but he still did as he was told. The green profound sword in Yi Ling's hand started to vibrate. Moments later, Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword returned to his hand. He looked at Yi Ling and said, "Report to Xiao Ta." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly stored Yi Ling into Xiao Ta's body. Yi Xian held the green profound sword and slowly closed his eyes. The next moment, the spacetime in front of him suddenly tore apart. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian had already transformed into a sword beam and disappeared. His target was the universe origin realm. Yi Xian used the green profound sword to tear apart spacetime. Fortunately, he was strong now. Otherwise, he would not have been able to withstand such a tearing. Because it was too far. Along the way, Yi Xian's face was terrifyingly gloomy and his eyes were suffused with a faint blood-red color. Universe Origin Realm. The current Universe Origin Realm was unusually united because of the appearance of the heaven-forsaken race. The major forces of the Universe Origin Realm naturally would not forget the heaven-forsaken race. Back then, almost all the forces of the Universe Origin Realm had joined forces to chase this terrifying race out of the Universe Origin Realm. They were chased out, not exterminated. Back then, even if all the races joined forces, they could not destroy the heaven-forsaken race. In the Universe Origin Realm, there were 6 super races. They were the Divine Wilderness race, the Li race, the Heavenly Abyss race, the Meng race, the Ancient Star race, and the Shi race. Although there were many races in the Universe Origin Realm, these 6 races were the strongest and also the leaders. Now, with the appearance of the heaven-forsaken race, the leaders of the 6 races, who had been fighting amongst themselves, had once again gathered together and signed an alliance. Under the leadership of the 6 races, the other races also grouped together and followed suit. The current Universe Origin Realm was as united as it had been in the past. In an unknown mountain range. Bang! With a muffled sound, a woman frantically retreated. As she retreated, the spacetime behind her directly shattered and was annihilated. The woman was Enlanxiu. Beside Enlanxiu was Zhang Wenxiu. Opposite the 2 women stood 3 men and a woman. The man in the lead was the young clan leader of the Ancient Star race, Gu Nan. The 2 men beside him were the young clan leader of the Divine Wilderness race, Shen Qing, and the young clan leader of the Shi race, Shi Tian. The woman was the young mistress of the Li clan, Li Sun, Behind the 4 of them, there were 16 super experts. Of these 16 people, 15 were circle breakers. The black-robed old man leading them was the circle drawer. He was the one who had repelled Enlanxiu. At this moment, Gu Nan looked at Enlanxiu and smiled. "Missan, you are the first woman to reject me. But the more you reject me, the more interested I am in you. Do you know why? Because I like the feeling of conquest." On the side, the Divine Wilderness race's Shen Qing smiled. "Brother Gu Nan, I have to say that you have good taste. This woman is indeed interesting." However, this woman was able to resist the circle drawer with the strength of a circle breaker. "I think her identity is not simple." The circle drawing old man also said, "Young clan leader, this woman is indeed extraordinary. If you forcefully capture her, I'm afraid you will provoke some trouble." Gu Nan smiled. "In the Universe Origin Realm, there is no one that our 6 great clans cannot afford to offend." But outside the Universe Origin Realm, as he said this, the corners of his mouth curled up. Outside the Universe Origin Realm, the forces of the lower worlds are not even comparable to ants in front of our 6 great clans. Arrogant? No one felt that Gu Nan was arrogant. The Universe Origin Realm was currently known as the center of the universe. In this place, the martial arts civilization was currently the highest known. Outside the Universe Origin Realm, the other worlds were equivalent to barbarians in the eyes of the 6 great clans. Gu Nan looked at Enlanxiu again and said with a smile, "If you were to marry me, with your talent and the resources of my Gu family, it would not be impossible for you to become a circle breaker." In the distance, Enlanxiu ignored Gu Nan. She looked at the circle-breaking old man and said, again. As her voice faded, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Chi! A spear pierced towards the old man like a bolt of lightning. The old man frowned and raised his arm to block it. Boom! With a muffled sound, the old man retreated nearly 100 feet. Gu Nan and the others furrowed their brows when they saw this. They were also circle breakers, but they absolutely could not take 3 moves from the old man. However, Anlancio was actually able to force the old man back. This was truly heaven-defying. The old man glanced at Anlancio, and there was a trace of seriousness in his eyes. She's a monster indeed. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward and punched at Anlancio. In the distance, Anlancio's expression was calm as she stabbed her spear forward, and a cold light appeared on the tip of her spear. Countless forces converged at this point. Rumble. Along with an explosion, an expanse of spear light erupted like a volcano. Anlancio and the old man retreated repeatedly at the same time, and Anlancio retreated into a space-time abyss. On the other hand, the old man retreated by almost 3 kilometers. The faces of Gu Nan and the others sank when they saw this scene, and their expressions grew even more serious. The old man stared fixedly at Anlancio while a trace of seriousness flickered in the depths of his eyes. Too monstrous. That was what he felt at this moment. If this woman became a circle breaker, then there would probably be no one in the same realm of cultivation who could be a match for her. Moreover, even the most monstrous circle breaker in the universe origin realm was probably inferior to this woman. In the distance, Anlancio slowly closed her eyes while the spear in her hand trembled violently. Meanwhile, Gu Nan suddenly said, "Third uncle, can you capture her?" The old man glanced at Gu Nan and spoke in a low voice, "This woman isn't simple. You might not be able to subdue her." Gu Nan roared with laughter. "Third uncle, are you joking? She's just a woman. Do you think I can't subdue her?" The old man frowned. "Isn't this nephew of mine a little too conceited?" Gu Nan continued, "Third uncle, remember not to kill her. I'll definitely make her mine." As he spoke, his eyes flickered with a trace of excitement as he gazed at Anlancio. "Only subduing such a woman would give me a sense of accomplishment." The old man glanced at Gu Nan, and then he turned to look at Anlancio. "Come. Let me see how monstrous you are." As soon as he finished speaking, he was just about to attack when Anlancio suddenly vanished on the spot. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he charged forward and tapped his finger forward. A head-on collision. Spear arrived. Bang! Anlancio's spear was stopped by this finger. But in the next moment, Anlancio let go of the spear in her right hand, and then she seized the opportunity to charge forward and strike her knee towards the old man's stomach. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he swiftly pressed his left hand down. Bang! Along with a muffled bang, the old man was blasted back repeatedly. Meanwhile, Anlancio suddenly grabbed the spear with her right hand, and then her figure leaped up and stabbed her spear towards the old man's head. Hiss! Space was torn apart. The old man swiftly raised his head, and then he suddenly twisted his right hand. In an instant, the space in front of him had transformed into a pitch-black vortex. When Anlancio's spear stabbed into the black vortex, a strand of terrifying force suddenly erupted from within it, and Anlancio's spear was instantly swallowed by the black vortex. Anlancio's pupils constricted slightly. Her figure shook as she flashed backwards, and she retreated 3 kilometers away. However, she just stopped when an afterimage suddenly appeared behind her. Anlancio's expression changed drastically, and she swiftly turned around and raised her arms horizontally. Bang! Anlancio was blasted over 10 kilometers away by a powerful force, and her body was blasted into pieces as soon as she stopped moving. Moreover, a middle-aged man was standing not too far away from her. 2 circle drawers. Zhang Wenqiu hurriedly appeared by Anlancio's side, and she spoke in a low voice, "Are you all right?" At this moment, Anlancio's soul was slightly ethereal, and it was very weak. She could still deal with 1 circle-drawing person, but she couldn't do anything to 2 of them. Meanwhile, Gu Nan suddenly smiled and said, "Missin, why act like this?" Anlancio directly disregarded Gu Nan, and she gazed at the middle-aged man while she slowly clenched her right fist. Gu Nan's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw Lancio disregard him again. You like to act cold and aloof, right? Wait. Wait for what? Right at this moment, a ferocious voice suddenly resounded. The expressions of the old man and middle-aged man instantly changed drastically, and then they swiftly gazed at Gu Nan. Meanwhile, a young man had suddenly appeared in front of Gu Nan, and Gu Nan hadn't even reacted when a sword was pressed against the center of his forehead. It was exactly Yi Xian. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw Yi Xian instantly restrain Gu Nan. Don't touch him. Gu Nan gazed at Yi Xian and said, Who are you? Yi Xian grinned and revealed an extremely ferocious smile. You set your sights on my woman and even destroyed my younger sister's body. Did Tianyi give you the gall? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly stabbed his sword into Gu Nan's crotch. Chapter 2016. A.H. A shrill and miserable cry suddenly resounded. Even though Gu Nan was a circle breaker as well, that was the weakest part of a man. So, even he wasn't able to endure such intense physical pain. Of course, there was also the psychological humiliation. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw Yi Xian attack, and he was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly stabbed his sword into Gu Nan's throat. Hiss! A strand of blood sprayed violently. The old man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. My ancient star race will definitely annihilate 10 of your clans if you kill him. Yi Xian turned around to glance at the old man, and then he suddenly twisted his right hand. Hiss! Gu Nan's head flew into the air, and his soul was instantly absorbed by the green profound sword. Both his soul and soul were obliterated. The expressions of Shenqing and the others from the Divine Wilderness clan had become solemn when they witnessed this scene. This fellow really killed Gu Nan. Moreover, he'd annihilated Gu Nan by force. Most importantly, Gu Nan, who was a circle breaker, hadn't even been able to fight back against this man. The expressions of the old man and middle-aged man instantly became ferocious when they saw Yi Xian annihilate Gu Nan. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. The old man spoke fiercely, You're courting death. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward, and a black vortex instantly enveloped Yi Xian. A moment of silence ensued. Oam! A sword howl suddenly resounded from within the black vortex. In the next moment, an expanse of blood-red light suddenly erupted from within the black vortex. Rumble! The black vortex was obliterated in an instant. At the same time, a figure retreated repeatedly. That figure was the old man. When the old man stopped moving, his body had been completely shattered, and only his soul remained. The expressions of everyone here changed when they witnessed this scene. This young man is a circle breaker? The old man gazed at Yi Xian with a dazed expression, You. Before he could finish speaking, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from where he was. In the next moment, a blood sword appeared in front of him. The old man's expression changed drastically. He stretched his right hand forward, and then he suddenly made a grabbing motion. For a time, a powerful strand of soul energy surged out from the center of his palm. The sword arrived. Chi! Under everyone's astonished gazes, the sword directly pierced through the old man's palm. In the next moment, Yi Xian had already appeared behind the old man, and his azure profound sword had already pierced through the old man's chest. Everyone was shocked. The elder's eyes widened in disbelief. He didn't expect that he would actually be killed by someone with 2 swords. In the distance, the middle-aged man's eyes were filled with disbelief. He had to admit that he was panicking. He was at the same level as the old man, but the old man had been killed by 2 swords. 2 sword strikes. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly opened his right hand, and the azure profound sword shook violently. In the next moment, the old man's soul was completely absorbed by the azure profound sword. Even though the old man was a circle breaker as well, he was an outsider. Moreover, unlike an outsider like Bai Xiao, the old man's strength was clearly much weaker than Bai Xiao. At this moment, Yi Xian had activated his bloodline energy, and coupled with the fact that the old man had been slightly careless when facing Yi Xian was able to kill the old man with 2 swords. It could be said that only an expert from the inner circle like Heavenly Loathsome could firmly suppress him. Yi Xian turned to look at the middle-aged man, and the middle-aged man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Who are you?" "You." He hadn't even finished speaking when Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him and slashed down with his sword. Life and death were decided by drawing the sword. This strike contained at least a few tens of thousands of overlapped swords. A few tens of thousands of swords. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted when he saw Yi Xian's sword slash down. He opened his right hand, and a huge black shield appeared in his hand. In the next moment, he raised the shield to block the attack. Bang! Everyone watched as the huge shield shook violently. In the next moment, the shield exploded, and the middle-aged man was instantly blasted thousands of meters away. As soon as he stopped, a shadow flashed by. In the next moment, the middle-aged man's eyes opened wide, and they were filled with disbelief. At this moment, Yi Xian was already behind him, and Yi Xian's sword was already at the center of the middle-aged man's forehead. Another instant kill. At the sight of this, the surroundings were so silent that even a falling needle could be heard. This young man killed 2 circle breakers in such a short period of time. When did this circle breaker become so weak? The middle-aged man looked into the distance and was about to speak. At this moment, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure profound sword shook violently and absorbed the middle-aged man's soul completely. In the distance, the experts from the ancient Star clan were filled with shock. At this moment, they were terrified. As for Shi Tian, Shen Qing, and Li Sun, they had solemn expressions on their faces as well. Or it should be said that they were slightly panicked. Who exactly is this young man? Meanwhile, one of the experts from the ancient Star clan intended to flee, but he just intended to flee when a ray of light pierced the center of his forehead. Yi Xian gazed at the expert who intended to flee. "Did I say you could leave?" As soon as he finished speaking, the azure profound sword absorbed the expert's soul, and then everything about him was eliminated. He'd completely vanished from this world. The expressions of Shen Qing and the others changed when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian didn't attack again. He walked slowly over to Enlanxiu and Zhang Wenxiu, and he gazed at them as he spoke in a hoarse voice, "Are you all right?" Actually, the energy of his bloodline had a huge effect on him. Even though he was conscious, he seemed like he was drunk. He was conscious, but he wasn't rational right now. Enlanxiu shook her head slightly. "I'm fine." Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He knew that if he'd been late, then Enlanxiu and Zhang Wenxiu might not be around anymore. When he thought of this, Yi Xian's expression suddenly became ferocious. He suddenly turned around, and the head of an expert from the ancient Star clan flew into the air. The expressions of Shen Qing and the others changed drastically. Shen Qing, who was in the lead, hurriedly said, "Sir, I'm from the Divine Wilderness race." The Divine Wilderness race. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. "Bai Xiao?" Shen Qing was slightly stunned, and then he said, "You know the Patriarch?" The Divine Wilderness race. Yi Xian's expression became even more ferocious. Right at this moment, an extremely powerful aura suddenly swept over from the distant horizon. Shen Qing and the others instantly heaved sighs of relief when they witnessed this scene. The real big shots have finally arrived. At this moment, an old man appeared. It was the ancient Star clan's patriarch, Gu Sen, and he was also a circle drawer. Gu Sen glanced at the battlefield, and then he suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. "You killed my son." Yi Xian grinned. Not only did I kill your son, I'm going to annihilate your entire clan. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward and slashed down with his sword. A vicious look flashed in Gu Sen's eyes. You? As he spoke, he suddenly charged forward and punched out. A reddish-gold fist beam swept out from his fist. Rumble. The sword beam and fist beam shattered, and the two of them retreated at the same time. As for Yi Xian, the green profound sword in his hand suddenly vanished while he was retreating. In the distance, Gu Sen's eyes narrowed slightly. He suddenly pressed his hands together and roared furiously, "Great overarching heavenly hand." As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand suddenly pressed forward and slapped down. Hiss! The space-time in front of him split apart. In the next moment, an enormous hand stretched out from the dark space-time and slapped down. Bang! Yi Xian's green profound sword was slapped flying. At the same time, Gu Sen suddenly waved his right hand in Yi Xian's direction. Destroy! As soon as he finished speaking, the enormous hand suddenly slapped down towards Yi Xian. Everywhere it passed, space was directly shattered and obliterated. It was an extremely terrifying sight. Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and then the green profound sword transformed into a blood-red shield that stood in front of him. Bang! The enormous hand slapped the blood-red shield, causing it to tremble violently while countless strands of space in the surroundings were shattered into pieces. However, the blood-red shield was completely unharmed. The blood-red shield had forcefully blocked all the force of the attack. Gu Sen's eyes narrowed slightly when he witnessed this scene, and he was slightly shocked in his heart. He hadn't expected that the sword shield formed from Yi Xian's sword would actually be so strong that it was able to block his attack. Meanwhile, the sword shield suddenly transformed into a sword, and then it transformed into a ray of light that slashed down towards Gu Senator. A wisp of a cold glow flashed through Gu Sen's eyes as he pressed his fingers together and pointed forward. Bang! His finger struck the green profound sword, and his expression instantly changed drastically when his finger came into contact with the sword. He wanted to stop, but it was too late. Hiss! Everyone watched as two of his fingers were sliced off, and then the sword pierced straight towards the center of his forehead. However, a vine suddenly coiled around the green profound sword at the critical moment. The vine didn't coil around the green profound sword for too long, and it immediately retreated after obstructing the green profound sword for a moment. Meanwhile, Gu Sen had retreated over 1 kilometer away, and he'd pulled apart the distance between him and Yi Xian. Yi Xian turned around and saw a woman walking over slowly from afar. It was Bai Xiao. A middle-aged man and old man were by Bai Xiao's side. The middle-aged man was the Shi clan's patriarch, Shi Bian, and the Li clan's patriarch, Li Qiu. Bai Xiao gazed at Yi Xian with a complicated expression, "Young Master Yi." When they heard Bai Xiao, all the others in the surroundings gazed at her. Does she know this man? Yi Xian opened his palm, and then the green profound sword appeared in his grasp. Meanwhile, Gu Sen walked over to Yi Xian and Bai Xiao's side, and he said in a low voice, "Patriarch Bai Xiao, who is he?" Bai Xiao glanced at Yi Xian and said, "Young Master Yi." Young Master Yi. All of them were stunned when they heard this. Gu Sen was stunned, and he intended to say something. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao suddenly walked over to Yi Xian and smiled bitterly, "Young Master Yi, why didn't you notify me that you were coming here? I'd intended to send someone to get you, but you..." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Bai Xiao, let's catch up in the future." Bai Xiao's face froze, and then she turned around to gaze at Shenqing. What exactly happened? Shenqing hesitated for a moment, and then he didn't dare conceal anything and told her everything. Bai Xiao's face fell once Shenqing finished speaking. A short while passed before she gazed at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, this is a misunderstanding." Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Shenqing, and a sword was pressed against his throat before the latter could even react. Gu Sen and the others instantly frowned when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian gazed at Bai Xiao and said, "A misunderstanding? Miss Bai Xiao, your clansman shattered my younger sister's body and bullied my woman, yet you're actually telling me that it's a misunderstanding?" Bai Xiao's expression was unsightly. "Young Master Yi, this really is a misunderstanding. I'll give young Master Yi an explanation. Please give me some face, young Master Yi." Yi Xian suddenly exerted force with his right hand. Hiss! The green profound sword pierced Shenqing's throat, and then a strand of blood sprayed from his throat. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically. He's not giving Bai Xiao any face at all? Bai Xiao hadn't expected Yi Xian to do this, and her face was filled with astonishment. Yi Xian looked at Bai Xiao and grinned. "Miss Bai Xiao, I'm sorry. This is a misunderstanding. My hand just trembled for a moment. Miss Bai Xiao, can you give me some face and let this matter go?" Bai Xiao was speechless. Chapter 2017. Seeing Yi Xian's reaction, Bai Xiao's expression became extremely ugly. Angry? Of course. Because Yi Xian was too ruthless. He did not give them any face at all. However, she was even more shocked. She did not expect Yi Xian to be so angry. He had completely changed his previous easygoing image. At this moment, Gu Sun, who was beside Bai Xiao, suddenly said fiercely, "Arrogant." As he spoke, he suddenly punched out. Boom! A fist mark went straight for Yi Xian. The powerful power contained in the fist mark directly ignited spacetime and turned it into ashes. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed down. Boom! A wave of sword light slashed onto the fist mark. The fist mark trembled violently before it split apart, and Yi Xian retreated nearly 300 meters away. Gu Sun wanted to make another move, but Bai Xiao stopped him. Gu Sun looked at Bai Xiao. "Patriarch Bai Xiao, what do you mean?" Bai Xiao sighed softly. Gu Sun and the others still did not know about the alternate world. In other words, no one in the universe Yuan realm knew about Yi Xian's identity other than her. She knew that she absolutely could not touch Yi Xian. Otherwise, something big would happen. Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, can we let this matter go?" "Let it go?" Gu Sun glanced coldly at Bai Xiao. "Patriarch Bai Xiao, are you joking? This person has killed several members of the ancient star race and even threatened to destroy the ancient star race. How can you let this matter go? Furthermore, this person just killed Shenqing in front of you, and Shenqing is the young patriarch of your divine desolate race. Is Jade Firmament Patriarch going to let it go?" Everyone looked at Bai Xiao. On the side, the patriarch of the stone race, Shi Bian, said in a deep voice, "Patriarch Bai Xiao, who is this person?" No one was stupid. They naturally knew that Yi Xian was not simple. After all, Yi Xian was only a circle breaker, but this circle breaker could actually kill the circle drawer. Not only that, but he was also able to fight evenly with Gu Senator. This was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. Bai Xiao glanced at Yi Xian with a complicated expression, and she was just about to speak when Gu Sun suddenly spoke ferociously, "Old man. No matter who he is, he must die today." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly ignored Bai Xiao and charged forward, throwing another punch at Yi Xian. Chi! This punch actually tore apart the space in front of Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly closed his eyes slowly. In the next moment, the green profound sword turned into a sword gleam and disappeared into his glabella. One with the sword. The union of man and sword wasn't the union of man and sword from before. After all, his current realm was completely different from before. The moment the Qingxian sword entered Yi Xian's body, boom! A powerful aura suddenly erupted from Yi Xian's body. At this moment, Yi Xian opened his eyes and slashed down with his sword. Bang! The fist was directly slashed into pieces by Yi Xian's sword strike. In the next moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Gu Sen's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he pressed his right hand down and suddenly raised it up. Overarching heavenly palm. As soon as he finished speaking, the space in front of him suddenly split apart, and then an enormous hand stretched out from within and slapped down. Bang! An expanse of sword gleam shattered while Yi Xian was blasted over 1 kilometer back. But in the next moment, the green profound sword in his hand suddenly vanished. Hiss! The enormous hand was directly torn apart by a ray of sword gleam, and then the sword slashed straight at Gu Sen. Gu Sen's pupils constricted abruptly, and then he suddenly pressed his hands together. As soon as he did so, a mysterious and enormous shield made of talismans suddenly appeared in front of him, and countless rays of light coiled around it. The sword arrived. Bang! The mysterious and enormous shield exploded into pieces. Gu Sen's pupils suddenly constricted. At this moment, he was panicking. He never expected Yi Xian's sword to be so strong. At this critical moment, a tree vine once again wrapped around Yi Xian's green profound sword. Bai Xiao had attacked. The tree vine immediately retreated after blocking the green profound sword, and at this moment, Gu Sen had already retreated thousands of feet away. Yi Xian turned to look at Bai Xiao, who said in a deep voice, "Yi." Before she finished speaking, a sword slashed straight at her. Bai Xiao's expression changed slightly. She spread out her right hand, and a tree shield appeared in front of her. Bang! The green profound sword stabbed at the tree shield, causing it to tremble slightly. In the next moment, the tree shield split apart and shattered, allowing the sword to pierce straight through. Bai Xiao's expression changed drastically. With a light tap of her feet, she retreated thousands of feet, dodging Yi Xian's sword. When they saw this scene, the expressions of Shi Bian and the others by the side became solemn. This youth's sword could actually break the divine wilderness ancient tree, which was a supreme treasure of the divine wilderness race. What sort of sword was that? After she stopped, Bai Xiao hurriedly looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, this is a misunderstanding. We will give young Master Yi." Before she could finish speaking, another sword slashed over. Bai Xiao's expression changed drastically. She charged forward and pointed a finger forward. A drop of green light appeared on the tip of her finger. The divine wilderness ancient tree's divine energy. She had no choice but to use her full strength when facing Yi Xian's green profound sword. When her finger touched the green profound sword, the powerful force caused the sword to tremble violently. After that, Yi Xian retreated thousands of feet with his sword. However, Bai Xiao's finger shattered as well. Yi Xian's strength was inferior to hers, but his sword could break through her divine energy. After Yi Xian was pushed back, Gu Sen said in a low voice, "Everyone, this kid can't be allowed to live. If we allow him to join the heaven-forsaken clan." The expressions of Shi Bian and the others turned gloomy when they heard this. The formidable combat strength that Yi Xian had revealed was enough to make them feel fearful. If Yi Xian joined the heaven-forsaken clan, then it would be extremely disadvantageous to them. Killing intent appeared in their eyes when they thought up to this point. Ha! Suddenly, a roar of laughter resounded from afar. Bai Xiao's expression instantly turned solemn when she heard this laughter. She turned around and saw that spacetime had torn apart nearby, and a woman had walked out. It was the patriarch of the heaven-forsaken clan, Tian Yen. Actually, she'd been here for quite some time, but she hadn't come out. Everyone's expressions changed when they saw Tian Yen. The ancient priest of the heaven-forsaken clan. She was the #1 expert of the eternal origin world all those years ago. The experts of the heaven-forsaken clan hadn't entered the eternal origin world because the eternal origin world had set up countless formations and armies at the entrance of the spacetime passageway. If the heaven-forsaken clan wanted to enter, then they had to deal with these people first. Heaven Hatred had relied on his own power to tear through the spacetime barrier and enter. However, in the entire Tian Forsaken tribe, only she had this kind of power. And the reason why Yi Xian was able to force his way in was naturally because of the green profound sword. Heaven's Loathsome still needed to tear it apart by force, but he didn't need to. The green Xian sword could ignore any existence of spacetime. All of them seemed as if they were facing a formidable enemy as soon as Heaven Hatred appeared. Even Bai Zhao's expression changed. It became incomparably solemn. Tian Forsaken Tribe. Back then, this race was an invincible existence in the universe origin realm. They were the nightmare of countless families and forces. Heaven's Loathsome ignored Bai Zhao and the others. She glanced at Yi Xian, the corners of her mouth curling up. At this moment, she suddenly found King Kaoshan pleasing to the eye. Seeming to have thought of something, Heaven's Malice suddenly turned to look at Bai Zhao and said with a smile, "Bai Zhao, how interesting. Previously, you mocked me for being enemies with King Kaoshan, but I never thought that you would also be enemies with him now. Tendo is really a good reincarnation. You must be feeling a pain in the ass right now, right? Huh. What did it feel like to be enemies with King Kaoshan? I can't fight him. I can't scold him. To put it simply, it was the kind of person that made you very unhappy with him, but you couldn't do anything about it." It had to be said that Heaven's Malice was indeed very happy at this moment. She was too happy. Previously, when she was enemies with Yi Xian, she was almost angered to death by King Kaoshan. King Kaoshan was simply not human. Now, when she saw Bai Zhao and King Kaoshan in conflict, she could not be happier. It was really too comfortable. Bai Zhao glanced coldly at Heaven's Malice. "Heaven's Malice, there's only a misunderstanding between us and young Master Yi." "Misunderstanding?" Heaven's Malice's lips curled into a disdainful smile. "Bai Zhao, at first, I thought that you were a woman with some intelligence, but I didn't expect you to be so stupid. Not only did you disciples of large families want to snatch King Kaoshan's woman, but you even destroyed his sister's body, but you say it's just a misunderstanding. Do you think that King Kaoshan is a kind man?" Hearing this, Bai Zhao's expression became extremely ugly. As if she had thought of something, she glanced coldly at the young clan leader of the Stone clan, Shi Tian, and the young lady of the Li clan, Li Sun. When they saw Bai Zhao's gaze, their expressions changed. They lowered their heads slightly, not daring to meet her eyes. At this moment, the clan leader of the Stone clan said in a low voice, "Clan leader Bai Zhao, we can't have internal strife now. We need to unite now." Gu Sun also said, "Clan leader Bai Zhao, I think that swordsman is in cahoots with the heaven-abandoned clan. Why don't we just get rid of him today and get rid of, shut up." Bai Zhao suddenly turned her head and roared. Everyone was stunned. Bai Zhao looked coldly at Gu Senior, "You idiot. Not only are you stupid, but your dead son is also stupid." Hearing this, Gu Sen's expression became ugly. "Clan leader Bai Zhao, what do you mean?" Bai Zhao ignored Gu's senator. She turned around and walked in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and said, "Young Master Yi, how do you think this matter should be resolved?" Yi Xian walked in front of Bai Zhao. "You can touch me, but you can't touch the people around me." "Resolved? The entire ancient Star clan is dead, and..." As he spoke, he pointed at Li Sun, and Shi Tian in the distance. "Anyone who participated in the previous matter is dead. This matter can be resolved peacefully." The expressions of Gu Sun and the others instantly turned ugly when they heard this. Gu Sun stared at Yi Xian. "You don't know when to stop. Do you think we're afraid of you?" "Huh." At this moment, Heaven Hater suddenly laughed. "This is too much. This King Kaoshan is too much. I think he's too much. How dare he make such a request? Bai Zhao, how can you tolerate this? Hit him. Beat him up." Everyone was speechless. Bai Zhao's expression was extremely ugly. Heaven Hater continued, heaven hater, if I were you, I definitely wouldn't tolerate this. I will definitely kill this King Xiaofan. Why should I be afraid of him? Kill him. Everyone was speechless. Chapter 2018. Schadenfreude. Heaven felt great. Bai Xiao had been mocking her previously, but now, Bai Xiao had clashed with King Xiaofan herself. This feeling was too great. Most importantly, King Xiaofan would definitely not be on the same team as the various races of the Universe Yuan realm. In fact, she had been worried about this previously. If Yi Xian really joined forces with Bai Xiao, it would undoubtedly be very disadvantageous to the heaven-forsaken race. But now, she did not need to worry about this. Not only that, there was an irreconcilable conflict between King Xiaofan and Bai Xiao and the others. If Bai Xiao agreed to King Xiaoshan's conditions, then even if the Universe Yuan Realm alliance did not collapse, there would be cracks and even internal strife. And if Bai Xiao did not agree, with King Xiaoshan's temper, how could he let it go? If the Universe Yuan Realm alliance went against Yi Xian, once that perverted woman appeared, heaven's hatred gazed at Bai Xiao, who remained silent, and a wisp of a smile that took pleasure in Bai Xiao's misfortune arose on his face. In the distance, Bai Xiao was silent. It had to be said that she was indeed in a difficult position. She could not agree, but she could not refuse. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Miss Bai Xiao, I think you are mistaken about something. Whether I take revenge or not has nothing to do with you. Finally, if you stop me when I kill someone, I will destroy your divine wilderness race as well. If you don't believe me, you can try." With that, he looked directly at Gu Senator. The next moment, he suddenly disappeared. Chi! A wisp of sword light tore through the battlefield. Bai Xiao's expression was extremely ugly. By the side, the corners of Heaven Loath's mouth curled up. This was the scene she liked to see the most. It had to be said that Yi Xian was becoming more and more pleasing to the eye. Of course, the premise was that he did not clash with this bastard. In the distance, Gu Sen's expression changed drastically. He was currently a little afraid of Yi Xian because Yi Xian's sword was too terrifying. Without any time to think, he clasped his hands together and silently chanted an incantation. The next moment, a strange black vortex suddenly appeared in front of him. Within the vortex, countless mysterious forces gathered. At this moment, Yi Xian's sword arrived. Boom! The black vortex trembled violently, and then strands of formidable energy swept out from the surroundings like waves. In an instant, the space in the surroundings became illusory. And Yi Xian slashed down again. Chi! As the sword fell, the black vortex was directly torn apart. Gu Sen's expression instantly changed. His body trembled and he retreated, but Yi Xian's sword was faster. Chi! Before Gu Sen could stop, the space in front of him split open. In the next moment, a sword stabbed out. Gu Sen was greatly shocked in his heart. He suddenly flipped his right hand, and then raised it upwards. Great overarching heavenly hand. As soon as he finished speaking, the space before him suddenly split apart, and then an enormous hand stretched out. However, this enormous hand had just appeared when it was directly slashed into pieces by Yi Xian's sword. Boom! Along with an explosion, Gu Sen was instantly pushed over 3 kilometers back. Moreover, as soon as he stopped moving, his body was slashed into pieces by countless strands of sword qi, and only his soul remained. The expressions of Shi Bian and the others changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. They naturally couldn't just watch as Yi Xian killed Gu Sen, and they were about to attack right away. However, Bai Xiao suddenly appeared in front of Gu Sen, and they didn't even have the time to react before she slapped her palm against Gu Sen's soul. Bang! Gu Sen's soul was instantly blasted apart, and he vanished completely from this world. This sudden scene caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. What's Bai Xiao doing? Yi Xian was slightly stunned as well. Obviously, Bai Xiao's actions had stunned him as well. Heaven Hatred's eyes narrowed slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. Bai Xiao suddenly waved her right hand. In an instant, over a dozen powerful auras suddenly appeared behind those experts from the ancient star race. In the next moment, all of them were annihilated. Shi Bian stared at Bai Xiao. "What are you doing?" Bai Xiao walked slowly to Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, the ancient star race will completely vanish from this world from now on." Yi Xian fell silent. Bai Xiao turned to look at Shi Bian and Li Qiu. "Annihilate the ancient star race." Shi Bian suddenly sent a voice transmission. "Patriarch Bai Xiao, who exactly is this person?" Shi Bian and Li Qiu weren't stupid. They knew that this young man definitely had a great background. Otherwise, Bai Xiao would definitely not do this. Bai Xiao said softly, "He's someone we can't afford to offend. Did you see that day? That guy practically pointed at her nose and scolded her, but she didn't dare to do anything." At this point, she paused for a moment and continued, "To put it simply, there's a super expert behind him that surpasses the circle drawer. An expert above the circle drawer." Hearing this, the two of them were stunned on the spot. Shi Bian said with a trembling voice, How is this possible?" Bai Xiao said indifferently, "How is it impossible? Did you see that day? She called him King Kaoshan. Do you know why? Because he really has a backer." The two of them were speechless. Bai Xiao glanced at Li Sun and Shi Tian in the distance. "We have a chance of winning against the heaven-forsaken race, but if we go against him, we will only die. You two decide yourselves." Hearing this, the two of them had ugly expressions on their faces. At this moment, Li Sun and Shi Tian clearly realized that something was wrong. The two of them hurriedly looked at their respective patriarchs with pleading eyes. They knew that they might be sacrificed. Even the ancient star race would be sacrificed. At this moment, Bai Xiao suddenly said, "Let me be the bad guy." As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeves. Boom! Li Sun and Shi Bian were directly wiped out. They didn't even have a chance to fight back. Shi Bian and Li Qiu were silent. Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, this is our fault. This happened because of our lack of discipline." As she spoke, she bowed slightly. "Young Master Yi, I apologize to you on behalf of the divine wilderness race." Apologize. Her attitude could be said to be extremely humble. Shi Bian and Li Qiu looked at each other and bowed slightly as well. At this moment, Heaven Hater suddenly said, "How boring." Bai Xiao looked at Heaven Hater and smiled. "Lady Heaven Hater, I seem to have disappointed you." Heaven Hater smiled. "I thought you had a lot of backbone." Backbone? Bai Xiao smiled and said, "Heaven Hatred, I thought you were a man of integrity before. But now? You didn't resist when 2 humiliating words were carved on you, did you? No, you couldn't resist at all. If you had backbone, why didn't you resist with your life?" Heaven Hater was not angry. "Bai Xiao, you surprised me. To not offend King Kaoshan, you sacrificed your ally." As she spoke, she gave a thumbs up. "Amazing." Bai Xiao smiled. "Heaven Hater, when did you become so talkative?" Heaven Hater laughed. She glanced at Yi Xian in the distance and turned to leave. Bai Xiao and the others didn't stop her. Because they knew that if Heaven Hater wanted to leave, then they couldn't stop her. Just like all those years ago, Heaven Hater had chosen to retreat for the sake of her clansmen, and they couldn't do anything about it. After Heaven Hater left, Yi Xian turned around and walked over to Lanqiu and Zhang Wenqiu. "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, he led the two of them away. Bai Xiao's expression dimmed down as she watched Yi Xian leave. The goodwill they'd formed all those years ago had vanished into thin air. What a pity. Fortunately, I didn't form any bad karma with him. Meanwhile, Boundless spoke in a low voice, Patriarch Bai Xiao, who exactly is that young man? Li Qiu looked at Bai Xiao with curiosity in his eyes. Bai Xiao spoke softly, I don't know who he is. All I know is that a woman in a plain dress appeared behind him when Heaven Hater was about to kill him. After that, Heaven Hater and the abandoned Heaven clan were almost annihilated by that woman. Most importantly, that woman's main body didn't come over. Li Qiu furrowed his brows slightly, a clone. Bai Xiao shook her head, she crossed countless star fields to attack, and she only used one sword strike to defeat Heaven Hater. Heaven Hater didn't even have the strength to fight back against her. One sword strike. Hearing this, Li Qiu and Boundless' expressions became extremely solemn. She crossed countless star fields and defeated Heaven Hater with one sword strike. They didn't know how terrifying the woman in the plain dress was, but they knew how terrifying Heaven Hater was. Back then, that woman was the #1 super expert in the universe origin world. However, she was defeated by a sword strike that crossed countless star fields. Now, the two of them understood why Bai Xiao was so respectful to that young man. They had to be respectful. Bai Xiao spoke softly, he's only a circle breaker, but he can kill the person who drew the circle. He's even more monstrous than I imagined. Of course, with such an expert behind him, even if his talent is average, it won't be bad. Moreover, his talent isn't bad. As she spoke, she sighed again, previously, I sowed good karma with him, hoping to pull him to our side. If he comes to our side, then we will always be invincible. Because as long as he's here, Heaven Hater will hesitate to attack, but now. At this point, she shook her head and smiled bitterly. At this moment, Shi Bian said, don't worry about this. It's fine as long as he doesn't become our enemy. Li Qiu nodded slightly, now, the most important thing is to deal with the Heaven-Forsaken clan. If I'm not wrong, the Heaven-Forsaken clan will soon launch a large-scale attack on the Heavenly River mouth. We have to prepare early. Bai Xiao nodded slightly, pass down my order. Let Meng Qian and Tianyuan Immortal come over to discuss this. Li Qiu nodded, then turned and left. Bai Xiao turned and looked into the distance. Gradually, her face darkened, and no one knew what she was thinking. On the other side, Yi Xian returned to Xiao Ta. At this moment, Anlanxio's physical body had recovered. Yi Ling's physical body had also recovered. Yi Xian looked at Anlanxio and asked softly, are you alright? Anlanxio shook her head, I'm fine. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, you've become so strong? Yi Xian smiled slightly, of course. Don't you know who I am? Zhang Wenxiu blinked, just now, that woman called you King Kaoshan. What did that mean? Yi Xian's expression froze. At this moment, Anlanxio suddenly said, I think something might have happened to Sister Nian. Hearing this, Yi Xian and Zhang Wenxiu's expressions changed. Chapter 2019. Something might have happened to Big Sister Nian. Yi Xian spoke solemnly, Little An, why do you say that? Anlanxio spoke solemnly, Big Sister Nian wouldn't have vanished for no reason. She would have definitely notified us if she left normally. However, she left in a hurry and didn't notify us. Yi Xian spoke solemnly, it really isn't normal. As he spoke, he took out a transmission stone and tried to contact Big Sister Nian. But it didn't take long for his face to sink. I can't contact her at all. Zhang Wenxiu shook his head, it's useless. We've already contacted her. Yi Xian frowned slightly, besides Qing, Dad, and Big Brother, there shouldn't be anyone capable of killing Big Sister Nian. As far as he was concerned, besides the 3 swords, even the formidable Heavenly Hater couldn't kill Big Sister Nian. It should be said that Big Sister Nian's strength was absolutely not inferior to Heavenly Hater. So here's the problem. Where did Sister Nian go? Meanwhile, Xiaota spoke abruptly, "Young master, I feel that you shouldn't be worried about Big Sister Nian." Yi Xian was slightly curious, "Why?" Xiaota spoke indifferently, "You can't see clearly because you're closely involved. With Big Sister Nian's strength, there are definitely only 3 swords that can suppress her. In fact, it should be said that only 3 swords can kill her. Moreover, Big Sister Nian's intelligence is unparalleled. No one can take advantage of her." Yi Xian fell silent. How could he not be aware of that? But as Littleton said, Big Sister Nian couldn't have left for no reason. She must have encountered something. Meanwhile, Anlancio spoke abruptly, "We can ask the people from Universal Origin World to help us investigate. After all, they're more familiar with this place than we are." Yi Xian thought about it and nodded, "All right." As he spoke, he looked at the 2 women, "Both of you are circle breakers?" Anlancio nodded, "But our circle breakers seem to be different from yours." Yi Xian smiled, "Strictly speaking, mine isn't circle breakers, but circle breakers." Anlancio and Zhang Wenxiu frowned slightly. Obviously, they didn't understand it very well. Yi Xian smiled and explained to the 2 girls. After a while, Zhang Wenxiu gave him a thumbs up. "You're amazing." He actually thought of such a method. Yi Xian smiled. "Do you want to use this method?" Anlancio shook her head. "This only suits you." Yi Xian was slightly stunned. Very quickly, he understood. He entered the safe zone. Just as Anlancio had said, his method could only be used by him, because even if others wanted to use it, there was no circle for them to enter. Because he had the Azure Profound Sword, he could use it as a medium to enter Qing'er's circle. Moreover, Qing'er wouldn't stop him. But what about the others? Even if others wanted to enter the industry, who should they enter? Thinking of this, Yi Xian could not help but shake his head and smile. It seemed that he had to take a path that no one had ever taken before. The entrant. Strictly speaking, he was not a circle breaker, but a circle breaker. Meanwhile, Anlancio suddenly said, "When Xiao and I will enter your Shao Ta to cultivate." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." The 2 girls directly entered the Shao Ta. The time inside the Shao Ta was different from the outside world. If the 2 girls cultivated inside the Shao Ta, they would have a high chance of becoming circle drawers. Especially Anlancio. With her talent and ability, it would not be difficult for her to become a circle drawer. After the 2 girls entered the Shao Ta, Yi Xian suddenly thought of someone. Yang Nianxue. Sister Shui. Thinking of Yang Nianxue, Yi Xian's face immediately darkened. Damn it! Where did his biological sister run off to again? However, he was not worried about Yang Nianxue at all. His father might not care about him, but he would definitely care about Sister Shui. Without thinking about Yang Nianxue, Yi Xian turned and disappeared into the horizon. The mouth of the Heavenly River. The mouth of the Heavenly River was a defensive area set up by the 6 great families of the Eternal Origin world. Its purpose was to protect the Heaven-forsaken race. If the Heaven-forsaken race wanted to enter the Eternal Origin world, they could only go through this place. Only super experts like Heaven Loathsome could shatter spacetime and enter the Eternal Origin world by force. The spacetime of the Eternal Origin world had powerful self-healing abilities. In other words, the Heaven-forsaken race could not enter the Eternal Origin world this way. Only Heaven Loathsome could. Even Heaven Loathsome could not destroy such a large spacetime wall. Therefore, the only way for the Heaven-forsaken race to enter the Eternal Origin world was through the mouth of the Heavenly River. At this time, all the experts of the Heaven-forsaken race had gathered at the mouth of the Heavenly River. There were tens of thousands of them. Among them, there were 12 circle breakers. There were also more than 60 circle drawers. Below them, there were countless in-action realm experts. The leader was Heaven Loathsome. Beside Heaven Loathsome was Tianji. Tianji said softly, "Sister, did King Kaoshan really fall out with Bai Xiao and the others?" Heaven Loathsome nodded. "But I did not expect Bai Xiao to be so bold. In order not to become enemies with King Kaoshan, she actually abandoned the ancient star race." Tianji nodded slightly. "This woman is not simple. We have to be careful." Heaven Loathsome looked at the mouth of the heavenly river in the distance. "If I have the chance, I will kill her first." As she spoke, she walked towards the mouth of the heavenly river in the distance. When she arrived at the entrance, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Heaven Loathsome. It was Bai Xiao. Bai Xiao looked at Heaven Loathsome and smiled. "Miss Heaven Loathsome, we meet again. I've missed you a little." Heaven Loathsome's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Bai Xiao, I suddenly realized that King Kaoshan is much more real than you. Although he is shameless, he is genuine. If he likes someone, he likes them. If he doesn't like them, he doesn't like them. But you, woman, are extraordinarily hypocritical." Bai Xiao smiled. "Heaven Loathsome, cut the crap. If you want to fight, then bring it on." Heaven Loathsome's lips curled into a disdainful smile. "A duel?" Bai Xiao shook her head. "I can't beat you." Heaven Loathsome was about to speak when an old man suddenly appeared nearby. The old man wore a grey robe and held a pitch-black iron staff. Heaven Loathsome's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw the old man. "Meng Chen, you're not bad. You've actually entered the inner circle." Meng Chen. The last. Meng Chen glanced at Heaven Loathsome and chuckled, "Patriarch Heaven Loathsome, we meet again." Heaven Loathsome spoke indifferently, "Looks like it's you who'll be fighting me today." Meng Chen nodded. "Please provide me with your guidance, Patriarch Heaven Loathsome." Heaven Loathsome turned to look at Ji Tianji. "She sent him to keep me busy on purpose. Be careful. If they don't attack, then don't attack. I'll definitely kill him within 2 hours." As soon as she finished speaking, she gazed at Meng Chen. In the next moment, both of them vanished on the spot. Bang! The expanse of space they resided in shattered, and then both of them vanished at the same time. 2 hours. Ji Tianji gazed at Bai Xiao and grinned. "Miss Bai Xiao, I'm looking forward to seeing how you deal with us." Bai Xiao smiled, "I definitely won't disappoint you." Ji Tianji nodded slightly. "I'll be waiting." The corners of Bai Xiao's mouth curled up slightly. "Open." As soon as she finished speaking, the entrance to the Milky Way in the distance split open. In the next moment, a group of experts charged out. There were over 100,000 of them. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao smiled and said, "Anyone who kills a member of the Heaven-Forsaken clan will be rewarded with 10,000 infinite divine crystals, 10,000 infinite divine crystals." The experts in the surroundings seethed with excitement when they heard this. In the next moment, they charged towards Ji Tianji and the others. These people weren't experts from the 6 great clans. All of them were independent cultivators and experts from small powers that they'd recruited from the cosmos dimension. Ji Tianji's face fell when she saw them. She understood Bai Xiao's intentions. She was using these cannon fodder to exhaust them. However, they had no other choice but to be exhausted. Ji Tianji turned to look at the circle breakers by her side. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao suddenly smiled and said, "Miss Ji, don't even think about asking the circle breakers to attack because I won't give you that chance." Fekta fell silent. She knew that if the Forsaken race's circle breaker expert attacked, the 5 great clans' circle breakers would also attack immediately. Not only that, but if the Forsaken race's circle breaker attacked, the 5 great clans' circle breaker would also attack immediately. It could be said that Bai Xiao wanted to exhaust the Tian Forsaken clan. Even if it was 10 for 1, it was still a profit. Tianji knew Bai Xiao's intention, but she had no choice. Fekta said, "Kill." As soon as she finished speaking, the Forsaken Tian clan cultivators behind her charged forward. When the two sides clashed, the Heaven-Forsaken clan immediately suppressed them. No, it should be called a massacre. However, the Heaven-Forsaken clan also suffered losses. It was basically a trade of several experts for one Forsaken Heaven tribe member. He had to admit that this was a great loss. But there was nothing the Forsaken race could do. Unfortunately, the experts of the Eternal Origin world were starting to feel afraid. This was because they were completely beaten up by the Forsaken race. At this moment, they sobered up. Many people wanted to retreat, but it was too late. The Forsaken race was already in a frenzy of killing, so how could they let them retreat? Meanwhile, Bai Xiao suddenly said, "You'll definitely die if you retreat now. If we put our lives on the line, there's still a chance of survival." As she spoke, she deliberately raised her voice. Anyone who kills a member of the Forsaken Heaven tribe will be rewarded with 100,000 immeasurable God crystals. If you die in battle, your family will receive 50,000 immeasurable God crystals. I, Bai Xiao, swear on the name of the entire Divine Wilderness race that if I deceive you, my Divine Wilderness race will be exterminated. 100,000 immeasurable God crystals. Killing one person would be rewarded with 100,000 immeasurable God crystals. Hearing Bai Xiao's words, the expressions of the experts from the Eternal Origin world immediately turned ferocious. 100,000 immeasurable God crystals. Most importantly, if they retreated now, they would definitely die because the Forsaken race would definitely not let them off. Thinking of this, countless people decided to go all out. Soon, many experts from the Eternal Origin world charged towards the experts of the Forsaken race like madmen. Seeing this, Fekta frowned because more and more experts of the Forsaken race were dying. Of course, the deaths of those from the Eternal Origin world were even more exaggerated. Soon, the number of experts from the Eternal Origin world decreased from 100,000 to a few hundred, but less than 2,000 people from the Forsaken race had died. Just when there were only 100 or so Universe Origin world experts left, Bai Xiao suddenly said, "Save them." Li Qiu looked at Bai Xiao. "Why?" Bai Xiao said indifferently, "Apart from dealing with the enemy, we can't be too ruthless. If we are too ruthless today, who in the Eternal Origin world will dare to follow us in the future? We have to leave them a bit of hope. Moreover, the fact that these people survived means that they are not simple. They can be nurtured." As she spoke, she looked at the distant Fekta. Back then, the Forsaken race was too ruthless and caused public outrage. In the end, they were besieged by everyone in the Eternal Origin world. We cannot follow their path. Leaving them a bit of hope is also leaving us a bit of hope. Chapter 2020. When the powerhouses of the 6 great clans saved them, they heaved a sigh of relief. The man in the lead suddenly looked at Bai Xiao and said excitedly, "Thank you, clan leader Bai Xiao. Thank you, clan leader Bai Xiao." The man lowered his head after saying that. At this moment, he was very excited. Before he came, he knew that the 6 great clans wanted to use them as cannon fodder. But he still came. Why? Because this was an opportunity for them. Not only did he need immeasurable divine crystals, but he also needed a platform that could provide him with sufficient resources. Simply put, he hoped to be chosen by the 6 great clans. Of course, he knew that this was very risky because the 6 great clans might not care about their lives. However, Bai Xiao's reputation in the Universe Yuan realm had always been good, so he wanted to take a gamble. It turned out that he had made the right gamble. The 100 or so people also knelt on one knee and said loudly, "Thank you, clan leader Bai Xiao." They had been in despair before, but now Bai Xiao had given them new hope. Bai Xiao glanced at the 100 or so people and pointed with a finger. A storage ring appeared in front of them. "This is the immeasurable divine crystal. Distribute it among yourselves. Go and heal your injuries." Everyone thanked him in unison and retreated. Bai Xiao turned to look at Fekta in the distance. Fekta smiled. Good move. Bai Xiao smiled. Miss Fekta, I've always felt that you are more suitable to be the clan leader than your sister. I'm not trying to sow discord, but I really think you are suitable. Because you will consider the future of the heaven-forsaken tribe. But your sister will not. The heaven-forsaken tribe she leads only knows how to fight. Fekta shook her head. I'm the opposite of what you think. I think my sister is more suitable to be the clan leader. Bai Xiao blinked. I'd like to hear the details. Fekta smiled. If my sister is the clan leader, she has the ability to unite the heaven-forsaken tribe. The heaven-forsaken tribe respects her and is willing to fight for her. I don't have that. Bai Xiao fell silent. Indeed. Although heaven hatred was arrogant and domineering, she had the ability. Moreover, as Fekta had said, heaven hatred had the ability to unite the heaven-forsaken tribe and make them fight for her. Meanwhile, the distant heavenly secret said abruptly, Miss Bai Xiao, I wonder how long Meng Chen can persist for. Bai Xiao glanced at the endless space above her head. Meng Chen was still fighting Heaven Loathsome. If Meng Chen lost and Heaven's Loathsome joined the battle, it would be a disaster for the 6 clans. Even Bai Xiao could not defend against this Heaven's malice. Bai Xiao retracted her gaze and smiled. Lady Tianji, let's get down to business. As soon as he finished speaking, the space in the distance suddenly split apart. In the next moment, 100 experts in dark golden armor walked out in unison. They were all circle breakers. Not only that, but the auras of these people were extremely dense, and their bodies were emitting extremely terrifying killing intent. This was no ordinary circle breaker. Fekta narrowed her eyes at the sight of these 100 people. The auras of these 100 people were very powerful. They were no weaker than the circle breakers of the heaven-forsaken race. Most importantly, there were more than 100 people. In terms of numbers, the 5 clans had completely crushed the Tian-forsaken race. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao suddenly smiled and said, Miss Tianji, do you think it's difficult? This is just the appetizer. As soon as she finished speaking, the 100 super experts charged towards the Tian-forsaken race. Fekta said calmly, Tian K. Beside her, the white-haired man, Tian K, suddenly said, Kill. As soon as he finished speaking, more than 30 Tian K experts walked out from behind him. These 32 people charged towards the 100 people. Even though there were only 32 of them, their auras were like rainbows. They were not any weaker than the 100 strong circle breakers. Soon, the 2 sides collided. This was a head-on clash. As soon as the 2 sides collided, the heavens fell and the earth cracked. The physical bodies of the 12 people shattered on the spot. Among them, 9 were from the 5 clans and only 3 were from the Tian-forsaken race. Seeing this, the expressions of the 5 clans' patriarchs darkened. These 100 people had been carefully trained by them to deal with the Tian-forsaken race. However, it seemed that these people they had trained were still slightly weaker than the Tian-forsaken race's experts. Bai Xiao watched the battle in the distance and remained silent. In the distance, Fekta frowned. Her intuition told her that something was wrong. Boom! At this moment, the unknown spacetime in the sky suddenly split open. The next moment, a figure frantically retreated into a mysterious spacetime abyss. This figure was Tian Vexation. Several thousand feet away from Tian Vexation stood 3 elders. 3 circle breakers, and all of them were from the inner circle. The expressions of the Tian-forsaken race experts changed when they saw this. Fekta looked at Bai Xiao. At this moment, she understood Bai Xiao's intentions. Bai Xiao's true goal was not to hold Tian Vexation back. Her true goal was to kill Tian Vexation. Tian Vexation was the core of the Tian-forsaken race. As long as Tian Vexation died, the Tian Forsaken race could be destroyed with a flick of a finger. If Tian Vexation did not die, even if all the experts of the Tian Forsaken race died, this threat would still exist. An expert from the inner circle, and one with no ties to them at that, was a great threat. Thus, Bai Xiao chose to kill Tian Vexation first. 3 experts from the inner circle. In the spacetime abyss, Tian Vexation took a step forward and left the mysterious spacetime abyss. She looked at Bai Xiao in the distance, and a disdainful smile appeared on her lips. You want to kill me with just 3 experts from the inner circle? Bai Xiao laughed. Of course not. That's why we've prepared a great gift for you. As soon as she finished speaking, the surrounding spacetime suddenly trembled. In the next moment, the spacetime above Tian Vexation turned blood red. Tian Vexation narrowed her eyes. At this moment, a mysterious force suddenly locked onto Tian Vexation. Tian Vexation's aura actually started to decline bit by bit. Fecta's expression turned extremely ugly. This is an ancient taboo technique, God's Descent. God's Descent. It was an ancient taboo technique that used endless blood and evil spirits to form an array. Once the array was formed, the targeted person's strength would be suppressed. At this moment, Tian Vexation's strength was suppressed by at least 40%. In other words, Tian Vexation only had 60% of her strength. It was equivalent to her strength being suppressed by half. Fecta suddenly said, "Break the array." As soon as she finished speaking, the experts of the Tian Forsaken race behind her charged out. Bai Xiao laughed, how naive. As soon as she finished speaking, the experts of the 5 races behind her charged out in unison. The true battle had begun. At this moment, everyone on both sides had joined the battle. In the sky, Tian Vexation glanced up, and then he looked at Bai Xiao. Bai Xiao, you must have killed a lot of people to set up this array. Bai Xiao shook her head and smiled. I've slowly collected these fresh blood and evil spirits over the years. You know, many people die in the cosmic origin world every year. Of course, I'm not the one who kills them. I'm just nature's porter. Once they die, I collect their mindless souls and fresh blood. Of course, there wasn't much in the beginning, but as I slowly accumulated them, I've finally completed this formation over the years. Don't even think about breaking this array. With your strength, you'll naturally be able to do so. However, you'll need at least an hour, and I won't give you that time. As she said this, the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. Come, invincible clan leader Tian Vexation. Let me see if you can fight 1 against 3 with 40% of your strength suppressed. The corners of Tian Vexation's mouth curled into a mocking smile. Bai Xiao, it seems like you knew that the Tian Forsaken race would make a comeback, so you set this up a long time ago. Bai Xiao nodded. Yes. Tian Vexation suddenly walked slowly towards Bai Xiao. At this moment, the 3 old men stood in front of Bai Xiao. One of them suddenly charged forward and punched at Tian Vexation. Viciousness flashed in Tian Vexation's eyes. He leaped up and punched out as well. Boom! Spacetime suddenly shattered, and the old man was sent flying thousands of feet away. The other 2 old men's expressions darkened when they saw this. How could he be so terrifying when 40% of his strength was suppressed? Without further thought, the 2 of them charged at Tian Vexation as well. Soon, the 3 of them attacked Tian Vexation from all sides. At this moment, Tian Vexation was being suppressed. In the end, he was fighting 3 enemies by himself, and he'd even been suppressed by 40% of his strength. Bai Xiao glanced at Tian Vexation, and no one knew what she was thinking. Right at this moment, she suddenly turned around and saw a man standing in the distance. Yi Xian. Actually, Yi Xian had arrived here a long time ago. He wasn't interested in the matters of the Tian Forsaken race and the universe dimension. He'd come here this time because he wanted to inquire about Big Sister Nian's whereabouts from Bai Xiao. The corners of Bai Xiao's mouth curled up slightly when she saw Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, do you need something? Yi Xian glanced at the battle in the distance and said, I didn't disturb all of you, did I? Bai Xiao smiled, not at all. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Miss Bai Xiao, I came here to ask you about something. Bai Xiao replied, what is it? Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, I have an older sister who was in the universe dimension. But she suddenly vanished one day, and I don't know where she is now. So, I want to ask you about it. Bai Xiao frowned slightly, suddenly vanished. Yi Xian nodded. Bai Xiao fell silent for a moment and said, how strong is your sister? Yi Xian thought for a moment and pointed at Heaven Hater in the distance, I think she's stronger than this woman. Bai Xiao's expression froze. Damn! What kind of monster is she? Any random sister is stronger than Heaven Hater? Even though she wasn't on good terms with Heaven Hater, she had to admit that Heaven Hater was indeed very strong. No one in the universe dimension was a match for her in a one-on-one battle. Bai Xiao withdrew her thoughts and looked at Yi Xian, in other words, it's impossible for her to have been erased. She disappeared on her own? Yi Xian nodded. Bai Xiao continued to ask, do you know where she last went? Yi Xian nodded, I do. It was in that mountain range. After a moment of silence, Bai Xiao seemed to have thought of something, and her pupils suddenly constricted. She couldn't have gone to the burial well, right? Yi Xian frowned slightly, the burial well? Bai Xiao said in a low voice, that's a place that the heaven-forsaken race once guarded, and it's a forbidden area of the heaven-forsaken race. The heaven-forsaken race. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he gazed at Heaven Hater. He hesitated for a moment before he said, can we stop for a moment? Bai Xiao was slightly stunned, and then she smiled and said, of course. I can refuse to give face to anyone else, but I'll definitely give face to young Master Yi. As she spoke, she waved her right hand slightly, young Master Yi has spoken. All of you, stop for a moment. We'll continue fighting later. The three old men in the distance immediately stopped. The experts of the heaven-forsaken race and the 5 alien races stopped as well. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi had spoken. Yi Xian was speechless. Please vote. Chapter 2021. Yi Xian was slightly embarrassed. He'd only come here to ask a question. Bai Xiao gazed at Heaven Hater and grinned. Heaven Hater, young Master Yi has a question for you. Heaven Hater glanced coldly at Yi Xian while her right hand was still clenched tightly. Obviously, she didn't want to give in to Yi Xian. She really disliked Yi Xian, and she wanted to slap that fellow to death right now. However, her reason prevailed in the end. She didn't want to offend King Reliance at a time like this. Because once Yi Xian and Bai Xiao got together, it would be rather disadvantageous to her and the entire heaven-forsaken race. Yi Xian gazed at Heaven Hater. He thought for a moment and asked, Miss Heaven Hater, what kind of place is Burial Well? Heaven Hater frowned slightly when he heard Yi Xian. Why are you asking this? Yi Xian said solemnly, one of my sisters might have gone there. Heaven Hater was expressionless. If she really went there, then she'll definitely die. Yi Xian's frown deepened. Why? Heaven Hater said indifferently, even I don't dare go there. What do you think? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, she might be stronger than you. Everyone was speechless. Heaven Hater stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Are you here to put on a show? Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao suddenly laughed. Heaven Hater, don't be angry. Young Master Yi definitely doesn't mean that. Don't be so extreme. Heaven Hater glanced at Bai Xiao. Can you shut up? Bai Xiao shrugged. Alright, you guys talk. Yi Xian said solemnly, Miss Heaven Hater, why is Burial Well so dangerous? Can you tell me about it? Heaven Hater said flatly, why don't you go and take a look for yourself? Bai Xiao suddenly said, Miss Heaven Hater, if young Master Yi dies in Burial Well, then I'll definitely tell the people behind him that you asked him to go. Heaven's Loathsome looked at Bai Xiao, his eyes as sharp as swords. Damn woman, can you shut up? Bai Xiao smiled and said, since you're not willing to do this favor, then let me do it. Saying that, she looked at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, this burial well is a very dangerous existence. Do you know the origin of the Forsaken clan? Yi Xian shook his head. Bai Xiao smiled and said, it is said that the Heaven-Forsaken race is an abandoned race. As for who abandoned them, I don't know. I only know that the most ancient race in the universe Yuan realm is the Heaven-Forsaken race. The burial well was a place guarded by the Heaven-Forsaken race. Simply put, the Heaven-Forsaken race seemed to be guarding something, or rather, sealing something. As for what it is, you can ask Heavenly Vexation. She should know. Yi Xian looked at Heaven Vexation. Miss Heaven Vexation, could you elaborate? Heaven Hater looked at Yi Xian coldly. That's our tribe's secret. At this moment, Fekta suddenly said, let me explain. She knew her sister's temper. Heaven Hater did not want to lower her head in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Fekta. Fekta said in a low voice, young Master Yi, if that friend of yours really went to the burial well, then I can only say that it bodes ill rather than well for her. Yi Xian shook his head. I think that besides Qing'er and the other two, no one can kill Sister Nian. Fekta subconsciously asked, 3? Yi Xian nodded. Qing'er, my father, and my sworn brother. The three of them should be about the same strength. Bai Xiao looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Fekta said in a low voice, that Qing'er is that plain-dressed woman? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Fekta looked at Yi Xian. Your father and your sworn brother are about the same strength as her? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Why? Fekta fell silent. At this moment, all she wanted to say was, fuck. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao suddenly asked, young Master Yi, may I ask, where exactly are you from? Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Even Heaven Hateful was looking at Yi Xian. She was curious as well. What exactly is this King Kaoshan's background? Yi Xian glanced at them, hesitated for a moment, and then said, Miss Bai Xiao, what I'm going to say next might not be very comfortable for all of you. Bai Xiao smiled, don't worry. Our endurance isn't bad. Yi Xian nodded. Then he said, with all due respect, all of you here are ants. The expressions of everyone here froze. Bai Xiao's smile gradually froze as well. Yi Xian gazed at Bai Xiao. You aren't angry, right? Bai Xiao's smile was slightly awkward. You continue. Yi Xian nodded. Everyone, do all of you think that the alternate world is really the center of the universe? Do all of you know how huge the universe is? All of them fell silent. How huge was the universe? No one knew the answer. Bai Xiao gazed at Yi Xian. Does young Master Yi know? Yi Xian said in his heart, no my ass. Of course, he wouldn't say that. He glanced at all of them. In the end, he looked at Heaven Hateful. Miss Heaven Hateful, do you know? Heaven Hateful gazed coldly at Yi Xian. I don't know. Do you? Yi Xian nodded. Heaven Hateful frowned slightly. How big is it? Yi Xian said seriously, infinitely big. Heaven Hateful's expression froze. Everyone was dumbfounded. Motherfucker. How is that possible? Infinitely big? Isn't this bullsh***? Heaven Hateful stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Do you think we're very fun? Bai Xiao felt a headache coming on as well. Young Master Yi, say something useful. Yi Xian said with a smile, Miss Bai Xiao, to tell you the truth, I come from a universe with a higher civilization. Bai Xiao said in a low voice, what universe? Yi Xian said in his heart, Xiao Ta, think of a universe. Xiao Ta said in a low voice, young master, you can pretend. I won't pretend. Yi Xian's face darkened. You've been with Dad for a long time. You're more knowledgeable. Think of a universe that can fool them. It has to be the awesome kind. After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, the primal universe. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What do you mean? Xiao Ta said, people from the Milky Way said that the universe was born from the Big Bang. The primal universe is the starting point of the Big Bang. To put it simply, it's the place where the universe first formed. It can be said that it's the starting point of all universes and star zones. Yi Xian said in a low voice, is the universe really born from the Big Bang? Xiao Ta said indifferently, who knows? Maybe the universe was blindly played around by someone. Just like humans, if a human squeezes a big ball and an ant encounters it, wouldn't it study it for several lifetimes? If a human squeezes a few more big balls, do you think the ant can study it clearly? Yi Xian said in a low voice, are we so lowly in the universe? Xiao Ta said, what else can we do? Young master, you have to understand something. Even now, we still don't know how big the universe is. We don't know how the universe was formed. You cultivators study the essence every day. The essence of the great Tao, the essence of all things. But they have never thought about how this essence was formed. What is the essence of the essence? How did the essence at the beginning come about? Yi Xian was silent for a moment before saying, Xiao Ta, what level do you think Qing is in this vast universe? Xiao Ta was silent. Yi Xian asked again, if we are all ants, then Qing, Xiao Ta sighed in a low voice, young master, it's wrong for you to think like this. Your starting point is wrong. Do you understand? Yi Xian frowned slightly, what do you mean? Xiao Ta said, you. Can you not put you on the same level as Sister Qing, Ask yourself, are you on the same level as Sister Qing, Young master, it's not that Xiao Ta wants to criticize you, but sometimes you can't stop pretending. No, sometimes you even believe it. If there is a God in this world, then I only believe in one God, and that is the mandate of heaven. The eternal God in my heart, Xiao Ta's heart. Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, Bai Xiao suddenly said, young Master Yi? With Yi Xian's current strength, it was naturally impossible for them to hear the conversation between Yi Xian and Xiao Ta. Yi Xian restrained his thoughts and smiled, the primal universe. Bai Xiao frowned slightly, the primal universe? Yi Xian nodded, do all of you know how the universe was born? The universe was actually born from the Big Bang. After the Big Bang occurred, countless regions of stars were born, and life was born in these regions after countless years. Heaven Hater suddenly said, the Big Bang? What was the universe before the Big Bang? All of them gazed at Yi Xian. Obviously, they were very curious about this as well. Yi Xian smiled, the universe before the Big Bang was an expanse of chaos. Heaven Hater stared fixedly at Yi Xian, then why did this expanse of chaos explode? Yi Xian said, I split it open. All of them were speechless. Xiao Ta was speechless. The expressions of everyone here had become extremely strange. That fellow split it open. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Heaven Hater, let's not discuss this. Now, can you tell me about the burial well? Heaven Hater remained expressionless and didn't speak. Fekta spoke solemnly, young Master Yi, the burial well was a forbidden area of my heaven-forsaken race all those years ago. Actually, even my heaven-forsaken race doesn't know exactly what's in there. Yi Xian frowned slightly, even all of you don't know? Fekta nodded. We only know that something is sealed there, but we don't know exactly what it is. Big sister went down there all those years ago, but she didn't go deep. Yi Xian gazed at Heaven Hater. Heaven Hater fell silent for a moment before he said, I can only tell you that if she really went down there and went deep, then she would have absolutely no chance of survival. Don't try to talk to me about how strong she is. Let me ask you, is she stronger than that woman in a plain dress? Yi Xian shook his head. Heaven Hater said coldly, since she isn't as strong as that woman in a plain dress, then she'll die without a doubt. At this moment, Bai Xiao suddenly asked, Heaven Hater, what exactly is in the burial well? Heaven Hater glanced coldly at Bai Xiao, what's in the burial well? Do I know you that well? Bai Xiao, everyone. Chapter 2022. Bai Xiao wasn't angry. She smiled faintly, Heaven Hater, watch your manners. You're the patriarch of a clan. Heaven Hater looked at Bai Xiao coldly, remember, I'm not familiar with you, understand? As she spoke, she turned to look at Yi Xian, do you have anything else? If not, we're going to fight. Yi Xian asked, where's the burial well? Heaven Hater pointed with a finger, and a white light entered Yi Xian's forehead. A moment later, Yi Xian turned and left. At this moment, Fekta suddenly said, Young Master Yi, are you really going? Yi Xian nodded, yes. Fekta hesitated and then said, Young Master Yi, that place is very dangerous. Yi Xian was about to speak when Heaven Hater suddenly said, what's dangerous? He's the Reliance King. Once he goes, he might be able to kill those bastards down there. Everyone, Yi Xian glanced at Heaven Hater and then at Bai Xiao, Miss Bai Xiao, if I die there, remember to tell my sister that Heaven Hater asked me to go. Bai Xiao was slightly stunned, and then she nodded, all right. At the side, Heaven Hater stared at Yi Xian, what's wrong with you? Yi Xian smiled and didn't speak. He turned and left on his sword. On the spot. Heaven Hater's expression was slightly ugly. Bai Xiao suddenly said, Patriarch Heaven Hater, do we still fight? Heaven Hater said angrily, you stupid woman, do you know that if he dies there, that woman will destroy the entire universe origin world? Bai Xiao frowned slightly, no way. Heaven Hater's expression was extremely ugly, no way. If he dies there, that woman will definitely kill him with her sword. With her strength, once she attacks the universe origin world, everyone here will die. Why are you still laughing here? You look like a retard to me. Bai Xiao said in a low voice, you asked him to go. Heaven Hater said angrily, I didn't know he would really go. Damn, doesn't this guy have any sense of danger? Didn't he know how strong he was? I've already told him that it would be dangerous for me to go down, yet he still wants to go. Damn it, are all those with backing so unscrupulous? Bai Xiao. Heaven's Hateful's face turned ugly. If Yi Xian really died there, that woman would definitely not let the heaven-forsaken race off, much less the entire eternal origin world. Not only Tian Ho, but Bai Xiao's expression also turned ugly. She had never met the plain-dressed lady before. However, from Heaven's Loathsome's expression, she knew that Heaven's Loathsome was not lying. If Yi Xian died there, that mysterious woman might really destroy the entire universe origin world. Meanwhile, Fekta suddenly said, let's go take a look. Let's go take a look. The expressions of both sides had become strange. Was he not going to fight? Heaven Hater's face was livid. No one knew what he was thinking. She really wanted Yi Xian to die in that well. However, if this fellow really died there, that woman would never let the heaven-forsaken clan off. Thinking to this point, Heaven's Malice said, let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished on the spot. Fekta and the other Circle Maker experts immediately followed after her. One of the Circle Maker experts by Bai Zhao's side spoke in a low voice, what should we do now? Bai Xiao replied, let's go and have a look. The old man hesitated for a moment and said, is that young man's life really that important? Bai Xiao glanced at the old man, didn't you see that Heaven Hateful is panicking? Do you think something that can make that woman panic is a trivial matter? As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished on the spot. The old man sighed softly, what's going on? A battle of life and death can't be stopped just like that. The experts of the 5 races were speechless as well. The heaven-forsaken race. After Bai Xiao and the others drove the members of the heaven-forsaken race away, they hadn't destroyed the entire race. Of course, it wasn't out of kindness, it was because of the burial well. The 6 races had been extremely fearful of that mysterious and terrifying place. At this moment, the territory of the heaven-forsaken race was very desolate and overgrown with weeds. After he arrived at the heaven-forsaken race, Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. Needless to say, even though this place was desolate, he could still vaguely sense the glory of the heaven-forsaken race from the collapsed buildings. The invincible heaven-forsaken race. All those years ago, everyone in Eternal Origin World had joined forces to drive this race out. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and it didn't take long for him to look into the distance. He walked towards that direction, and it didn't take long for him to see a well on a square. The well wasn't very large, and the ground around it was covered in all sorts of strange blood-red runes. Moreover, the well was tightly locked by 4 blood-red chains. Yi Xian glanced at the well and said softly, could another peerless big shot be sealed at the bottom of the well? And it's even a woman, right? Xiao Ta was speechless. Yi Xian didn't think too much about it. He walked towards the well. As he got closer and closer to the well, a trace of uneasiness actually rose in his heart. When this trace of uneasiness arose, Yi Xian frowned. This place wasn't simple. Yi Xian said in his heart, Xiao Ta, do you feel any danger? Xiao Ta was silent for a moment, then said, not yet. Yi Xian's face darkened. Even I feel danger. You still haven't felt it? Xiao Ta thought for a moment, then said, usually, when I feel danger, both of us are already dead. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta said, young master, why don't we bring Sister Tianming here another day? With Sister Tianming around, mystic realms and big shots are all fleeting clouds. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, is Qing interested in these things? Xiao Ta said, that's true. Sister Tianming wouldn't be interested in these things. Young master, when will you become invincible? I've been with you for so long, and you're still a little brother. You're not worried, but I am. You have to work harder. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta was about to speak, but Yi Xian suddenly said, Xiao Ta, do you want me to throw you down to scout the way? Yi Xian jumped up. Young master, are you even human? Yi Xian said with a straight face, you are Destiny's Tower. Who are you afraid of? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, young master, although I was modified by Sister Tianming, she only modified my functions. She didn't change my power. The next time you see her, can you ask her to make me stronger? Yi Xian frowned. Aren't you practicing on your own? Xiao Ta was silent for a while, then said, after following you, I realize that sometimes, hard work is meaningless. If I can rely on it, I'll rely on it. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the chains of the well in the distance suddenly trembled. Yi Xian's face changed. He looked at the well and said, is there something down there that's waving at us? Xiao Ta hesitated, then said, let's go check it out. Yi Xian nodded. I'll listen to you. After that, he walked toward the mouth of the well. Xiao Ta, Yi Xian's face looked serious. The closer he got to the mouth of the well, the more uneasy he felt. Just as Yi Xian was about to reach the mouth of the well, Yi Xian suddenly turned around. Not far away, a woman was walking toward him. It was Tian Yen. Yi Xian frowned. Miss Tian Yen, you. Tian Yen walked over to Yi Xian. Do you know what's sealed inside? Yi Xian shook his head. Tian Yen said in a low voice, a very terrifying existence is sealed inside. I was almost killed when I went down all those years ago. I was already in the inner circle at that time. If you go down there, you'll definitely die. Yi Xian glanced at the mouth of the well and said, what exactly is inside? Tian Yen shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian frowned. Isn't the heaven-forsaken clan in charge of sealing this well? Tian Yen looked at Yi Xian. The heaven-forsaken clan is the oldest clan in this world. However, this well is even older than us. Moreover, our ancestors didn't have any records about this well. I don't know much more about this well than you do. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he walked over to the well. He bent down and looked down. It was pitch black down there, and he couldn't see anything. Meanwhile, Tian Yen suddenly said, if you really want to go down there, then I'll give you a suggestion. Take that invincible younger sister of yours down there. She can protect your life if she goes with you. Yi Xian fell silent. Do I have to go to the Milky Way galaxy and ask for Qing? Suddenly, the well started trembling. A moment later, the runes on the ground actually emanated a strange red glow. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He gazed at Tian Yen, and Tian Yen's beautiful brows were knit together as well. Yi Xian spoke solemnly, what's going on? Tian Yen glanced at Yi Xian. I don't know. Yi Xian was about to speak when a sword howl suddenly resounded from deep within the well. It was a sword howl. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically when he heard this sword howl. It's Sister Nian's sword. Yi Xian was about to charge into the well when Tian Yen stopped him. She gazed at Yi Xian, you'll die without a doubt if you go down there. Yi Xian spoke solemnly, Sister Nian is down there. Tian Yen said, she's down there, and she's still alive. This proves that she has the ability to protect herself. With your current strength, you'll only be a burden to her if you go down there. Yi Xian fell silent. At this time, the entire well suddenly trembled violently, and gradually, those blood-red runes suddenly erupted with a terrifying power. Tian Yan's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she suddenly pressed her right hand forward. Bang! All the strange energy was suppressed by her. At this moment, the chains at the entrance of the well suddenly trembled violently. At the same time, a powerful force gushed out from the well. In an instant, the entire ruins of the heaven-forsaken clan started to crumble and collapse. Tian Yen led Yi Xian back. After they retreated for a few hundred meters, a blood-red beam of light suddenly shot into the sky from the well and shot into the depths of the starry sky. In an instant, the entire starry sky was dyed a strange blood red. It was the entire starry sky. Tian Yan's expression turned extremely solemn when she saw this. It seems like the seal is about to be lifted. At this moment, a sword howl resounded from within the well, but it only lasted for a moment. At the same time, Sister Nian's voice suddenly resounded from within the well, little fellow, hurry up and find Tian Ming. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. I beg for votes every day. Don't you guys get annoying? Chapter 2023. Find Tian Ming. Yi Xian's expression changed when he heard that. Things were getting serious. The mouth of the well suddenly split open, and a woman floated out. It was Mu Niannian. Mu Niannian was holding a sword in her hand, and her expression was grave. Countless blood-red threads were entwined around her, and she seemed to be trapped. Mu Niannian looked at Yi Xian as soon as she came out. Let's go. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword flew to Mu Niannian. Sister Nian, use my sword. Mu Nianyan shook her head. This sword is only suitable for you. Suitable. Yi Xian fell silent. He knew that Sister Nian had her own sword Dao and sword. Although the green profound sword was powerful, it was not suitable for her. Mu Nianyan turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. Kid, if you don't run now, it'll be too late. Yi Xian said seriously, with Sister Nian here, I'm not afraid of anything. Mu Nianyan was taken aback, and then she laughed. Kid, just wait to be beaten. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the ground beneath everyone's feet trembled slightly, and soon, a black-robed man slowly floated out of the well. The man wore a long black robe, and there was a strange swastika between his eyebrows. He emitted an extremely terrifying aura. Tian Yan's expression turned serious when he saw the man. The black-robed man closed his eyes slowly, and he took a deep breath greedily. He seemed to be intoxicated. As if remembering something, he suddenly looked at Mu Nianyan, and the corners of his mouth curled up. I didn't expect there to be an expert like you in the future. I'm a little surprised. Mu Nianyan smiled. You're not sealed. The black-robed man's mouth curled up in disdain. Sealed? Who in this world can seal me? Who can? Mu Nianyan smiled and said nothing. Heaven's Malice suddenly said, Then why have you been trapped there for so many years? The black-robed man turned to look at Heaven Loathsome. Trapped? Ridiculous. Heavenly Auntie frowned slightly. Meanwhile, Big Sister Nian spoke abruptly, he isn't trapped. He's staying down there by himself. Heaven's Loathsome was puzzled. Why would he do that? Mu Nianyan looked at the black-robed man and said with a smile, if he's not sealed, then there's only one other possibility. He's sleeping down there and waiting for something. What were they waiting for? Heaven's Loathsome frowned again. At this moment, the black-robed man suddenly looked around, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The vitality of this universe has recovered. Mu Nianyan looked at the black-robed man. Your goal is the life energy of this universe. Wrong. The black-robed man laughed, my goal is everything in this universe. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a light breath. This breath caused the heavens and the earth to turn illusory, and it didn't take long for all the spirit energy in the surroundings to vanish without a trace. Moreover, countless trees in the surroundings actually started to wither and slowly turn into ash. Heaven's Malice's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw this, you want to absorb this universe. The black-robed man glanced at Heaven's Malice. Can't I? Heaven's Malice clenched his right fist slowly. The black-robed man laughed, you're from the Forsaken race. Do you know how your ancestor died? As he spoke, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. I crushed his head with my own 2 hands. Of course, only you could fight the Forsaken race back then. The Forsaken race might be able to fight, but the other races are no different from ants. Heaven's Malice spoke in a low voice, why is there no record of you in the Forsaken race? The black-robed man laughed, because I killed the first batch of experts from the Forsaken race. Heaven's Malice stared at the black-robed man. Why didn't you kill them all? Beside him, Mu Nianyan said softly, he was raising this universe and the living beings in this universe. If I'm not wrong, all the life energy in this universe should have been devoured by him. That includes the many living beings in this universe. However, he didn't go to the extreme and left a chance for this universe to survive. Then, he slept in the well and waited for this universe to recover. Then, he would devour it again. He was raising this universe and the countless living beings like pigs. Every once in a while, he would come out and devour them. Then, he would sleep to digest them and wait for the next time. The black-robed man looked at Mu Nianyan. How did you know? Mu Nianyan laughed, I guessed. The black-robed man laughed, you guessed right. As he spoke, he sized up Mu Nianyan, his eyes flashing with excitement. Your vitality and spirit will definitely be greatly nourished. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward. With this step, all the space-time in the field became illusory. A blur shuttled through the space-time. The blur was clearly very fast, but it also felt very slow. Yi Xian's expression changed when he saw this. Time was different. At this moment, the black-robed man and the space-time where Sister Nian was in were completely different. The black-robed man had used a special technique similar to Xiao Ta's inner space. He wanted to kill Sister Nian with time. Heaven's Malice's expression also turned serious. Bai Xiao and the others who had rushed over also had extremely serious expressions. They had heard the black-robed man's words. The black-robed man's target was the entire universe Yuan realm. He was even more ruthless than the Forsaken race. After all, the Forsaken race had never thought of destroying the universe Yuan realm. In the distance, Mu Nianyan suddenly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and floated over like a snowflake. He was very light. The next moment, a sword light suddenly erupted. Bang! The blur was forced to a stop by this sword light. Meanwhile, the blur suddenly vanished. Sister Nian slowly closed her eyes. In an instant, countless sword lights suddenly appeared in the surroundings, and the sound of something tearing resounded incessantly in that area of space-time. Bang! Suddenly, that area of space-time exploded and transformed into a pitch-black vortex. Mu Nianyan and the black-robed man retreated explosively at the same time, and then both of them stopped at practically the exact same moment. As soon as they stopped, some remnant swords of energy appeared around Mu Nianyan. The corners of Mu Nianyan's mouth curled up slightly. Go! As soon as she finished speaking, the swords of energy around her suddenly vanished. In the distance, the black-robed man opened his palm and pressed it forward lightly. In an instant, a black vortex appeared at the center of his palm. When the swords of energy arrived in front of him, they were completely absorbed by the black vortex. Meanwhile, a sword suddenly stabbed towards him. A wisp of viciousness flashed through the black-robed man's eyes. He suddenly slapped his right hand forward, and the black vortex suddenly erupted. Bang! Along with a world-shaking explosion, the expanse of space-time here was transformed into ash. A moment later, rays of light shot towards the surroundings from within that unknown and mysterious expanse of space-time. At the same time, Mu Nianyan was blasted back into a space-time abyss. She just stopped moving, and then she pointed her fingers up into the sky and swiped them lightly. Hiss! A sword suddenly slashed down from the sky. Bang! The black-robed man was instantly blasted back into a space-time abyss. Yi Xian frowned when he witnessed this scene. At this moment, he suddenly thought of a problem. Sister Nian and the black-robed man were above space-time, but they were still fighting within space-time. What did that mean? Meanwhile, Heavenly Agony spoke abruptly, King Kaoshan, something's off. Yi Xian frowned slightly, what do you mean? Heavenly Agony gazed at the black-robed man, he's very strong, but your older sister isn't inferior to him at all. However, she asked you to go look for that woman in a plain dress. Yi Xian's pupils constricted when he heard this, damn it. Something's off. Bang! Suddenly, an extremely terrifying and formidable aura erupted from within the pitch-black well. A moment later, a woman floated out slowly from within it. Her long hair hung loosely on her shoulders, and just like the black-robed man, there was a strange swastika character on the center of her forehead. She wasn't alone. The expressions of Heavenly Agony and the others had become unsightly. Meanwhile, a little girl suddenly walked out from within the well. The little girl had a small braid, and she was holding an eyeless doll in her arms. Another one. Heavenly Agony and Bai Zhao's expressions became extremely unsightly when they witnessed this scene. There was a total of 3. The long-haired woman glanced at the black-robed man and Mu Niannian, and her expression was icy cold. The little girl glanced at Mu Niannian and grinned. That skin isn't bad. It can be used to add clothes to my doll. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Mu Niannian's beautiful brows knit together slightly, and then she suddenly turned around and swung her sword down. Bang! As the sword slashed down, the little girl was instantly pushed back. The little girl's face instantly warped when she was blasted back. However, she didn't continue attacking Mu Niannian, and she turned around to gaze at Yi Xian instead. Then I'll use your skin to make it. As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished on the spot. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he saw this. What's wrong with her? You can't defeat someone formidable, so you come to attack me? Yi Xian wasn't afraid at all. He immediately charged forward and swung his sword. Bang! As an expanse of light was blasted apart, Yi Xian was blasted over 10 kilometers back. On the other hand, the little girl was stunned. Because the doll in her hand had been slashed into two by Yi Xian. The long-haired woman frowned slightly when she witnessed this scene. The little girl gazed at the doll in her hand while she seemed as if she'd lost her soul. In the next moment, she suddenly raised her head to look at Yi Xian with scarlet red eyes. Ah! As she spoke, she leaped up and pounced towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What the hell are you shouting for? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, a ray of light tore through the surroundings. Bang! An expanse of light suddenly exploded, and then Yi Xian was blasted back explosively. After he stopped moving, Yi Xian suddenly frowned. Because he still felt that something was off. Even though the three of them possessed extremely terrifying strength, they weren't terrifying enough to make Qing show herself, right? Could Big Sister Nian be joking with me? When he thought up to here, Yi Xian couldn't help but look at Mu Niannian. Meanwhile, a strand of uneasiness suddenly arose from the depths of his heart. Chapter 2024. Big Sister Nian would definitely not joke around with me. In other words, there's definitely a huge problem. Suddenly, the little girl charged at him once more, and the expanse of space he resided in started burning. Yi Xian gazed at her as he closed his eyes slowly. In the next moment, the blood within him started boiling. The energy of his bloodline. When the little girl arrived in front of Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed, and a blood-red ray of light swept forward. Bang! The little girl was forcefully pushed back tens of thousands of feet by this strike. This time, the little girl was slightly stunned when she stopped because there was a deep injury on her arm. Suddenly, the black-robed man and Mu Niannian stopped abruptly. After she stopped, Mu Niannian turned around to glance at the well, and then she frowned slightly. Yi Xian was about to speak when Mu Niannian spoke abruptly. All of you leave first. Leave. Yi Xian gazed at Mu Niannian, and Mu Niannian smiled. Listen to me. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he nodded. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he gazed at Bai Xiao and Heaven Hateful. Let's go first. Right when they were about to leave, a voice suddenly resounded from the depths of the well. Leave? The voice resounded like a bell and shook the world. The expressions of Yi Xian and the others changed drastically. Yi Xian turned around and looked at the mouth of the well. At this moment, the mouth of the well suddenly split open completely, and then a middle-aged man walked out slowly. Bai Xiao and Heaven Hateful's expressions changed drastically when they saw the middle-aged man. Danger. That was what they felt at this moment. The middle-aged man had the shape of a character between his brows as well, but it was blood-red. The middle-aged man glanced at the surroundings, and then his gaze descended onto Mu Niannian in the end. He grinned when he saw Mu Niannian. I never expected that an expert like you would actually appear in the future. In the distance, Mu Niannian smiled and said, What's your name? The middle-aged man laughed. They used to call me Ancient Emperor. Ancient Emperor. Mu Niannian nodded and said with a smile, there are still many experts in this world. Ancient Emperor looked at Mu Niannian. You're not bad. I'm still lacking a servant. If you're willing, you can submit to me. Mu Niannian blinked. You think too much. The Ancient Emperor laughed. Then die. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward, and the space around Mu Niannian instantly became illusory. In the next moment, the space around Mu Niannian had transformed into a blood-red space. Mu Niannian's eyes narrowed, she suddenly drew her sword and slashed. Chi! As the sword slashed down, the blood-red space trembled, but it was not damaged in the slightest. Mu Niannian's brows furrowed slightly when he saw this. At this time, the green Xian sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly disappeared, and the green Xian sword slashed at the blood-red space. Chi! The blood-red space trembled slightly, and then was directly cut apart. It was still able to ignore the blood-red space. At the side, Ancient Emperor trembled slightly. In the next instant, his right hand made a grabbing motion, and the green Xian sword was enveloped by a powerful force. In the next instant, the green Xian sword appeared in Ancient Emperor's hand. Yi Xian was shocked. He wanted to recall the green Xian sword, but he was shocked to find that he could no longer feel the green Xian sword. Ancient Emperor looked at the green Xian sword in his hand and smiled. Good sword. Especially the tip of the sword. It is the sharpest sword in the world. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Interesting. Yi Xian said solemnly, Sir, we have no grudge. Ancient Emperor suddenly shook his head. Indeed, we had no grudge before. But now we do. We have waited for so long, and now that this universe has finally recovered, we will not let it go. Of course, there are also you living beings. Yi Xian was silent. Devouring the universe. Ancient Emperor and the others specialized in devouring the universe and living beings to strengthen themselves. This was a unique cultivation method. Rearing the entire universe like pigs. At this time, the little girl suddenly said, Master, I want to tear him to pieces. As she spoke, she rushed towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He did not make a move immediately. When the little girl rushed to Yi Xian suddenly took a step forward. In an instant, a wave of sword light engulfed him and the little girl. Core sword field. In an instant, Yi Xian and the little girl found themselves in a mysterious spacetime abyss. Countless sword chi tore through them. The little girl punched at Yi Xian, and this punch blocked all the sword chi. Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and a sword appeared in his hand. He leaped with the sword and slashed down. Boom! The little girl was sent flying by Yi Xian's sword. At this time, the long-haired girl suddenly disappeared from her spot. In the instant that the long-haired girl disappeared, Yi Xian's pupils shrank. Within his body, countless sword chi suddenly flew out. At this time, a finger pointed. Boom! The wave of sword light shattered, and in the next instant, the finger pointed directly at Yi Xian's chest. Rumble! Yi Xian was sent flying. When he stopped, there was a small goo mark on his chest. The long-haired girl looked at Yi Xian. Have a taste of death. As she spoke, the goo mark suddenly wriggled. In the next instant, Yi Xian's eyes widened. He realized that the goo had entered his blood vessels and was devouring his blood. After the goo devoured a drop of his blood, the goo seemed to have encountered something terrifying. It began to wriggle wildly, trying to escape from Yi Xian's body. But it was too late. Boom! The goo was devoured by Yi Xian's blood. In the next moment, terrifying energy erupted from the goo, and all of it was absorbed by Yi Xian's blood. At the same time, his blood started to boil, and his aura skyrocketed. Yi Xian was struck dumb at the sight of that. Were they here to give him tonics? In the distance, the long-haired girl frowned. How is that possible? The ancient emperor chuckled. This person's bloodline is very special. Your goo can't devour his blood. The long-haired girl said solemnly, that shouldn't be. The ancient emperor laughed. It's quite unbelievable indeed. Even I've never seen such bloodline power. The long-haired girl looked at Yi Xian. He's mine. The little girl suddenly raged. He's mine. The long-haired girl glanced at the little girl. You can have his skin, and I'll have his blood. How about that? The little girl thought about it and said, all right. Meanwhile, Heaven Loathsome suddenly said, aren't all of you not giving King Xiaofan face? The long-haired girl looked at Heaven Loathsome, and he said indifferently, don't say I didn't warn all of you. King Xiaofan isn't an ordinary person. A mocking smile curled up the corners of the long-haired girl's mouth. Do you think we're ordinary? As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly charged forward and pointed a finger at Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. He leaped up and slashed down with his sword, and it struck the long-haired girl's finger. Bang! The sword shattered, and Yi Xian was sent flying several tens of thousands of feet away. As soon as he came to a stop, an afterimage flashed across the battlefield. If this afterimage had said that it would last, time and space would have been forcefully torn apart and shattered. Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and the blood within him started to boil. A blood-red sword suddenly appeared in his hand. A sword condensed from his own blood. Blood as a sword. Yi Xian sheathed the blood-red sword and drew it swiftly. Hiss! As soon as he drew it, the space in the surroundings actually exploded apart. Bang! As Yi Xian's sword descended, the long-haired woman was directly pushed back by his sword, and she was pushed back tens of thousands of meters. As soon as she stopped moving, she fell directly into an unknown and mysterious space-time abyss, and there were close to 100 strands of blood-red sword qi on her body. It was an extremely shocking sight. Heaven Loathsome and Bai Zhao's expressions became solemn when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian's battle prowess was a little exaggerated. Even though he wasn't a member of the Circle of Masters, ordinary members of the Circle of Masters weren't a match for him. Not to mention members of the Circle of Masters, even some members of the Circle of Masters might not be a match for him. Meanwhile, Bai Zhao suddenly said, Heaven Loathsome, what do you think? Heaven Loathsome glanced at Bai Zhao, what do you mean? Bai Zhao smiled and said, you can't be thinking that their targets are just this King Xiaofan and that sword cultivator woman, right? Heaven Loathsome frowned slightly. Bai Zhao gazed at Heaven Loathsome, what do you think will happen if King Xiaofan and the swordsman leave? Heaven Loathsome was silent. The ancient emperor and the others were targeting the eternal origin realm. If Yi Xian and the swordsman left, they would undoubtedly be the next targets of the ancient emperor and the others. Bai Zhao said plainly, now we are watching him get beaten up. Later on, he might be the one watching us get beaten up. Because he isn't from the eternal origin realm and has no kin here, he can completely ignore this place. But we can't. This is our home, isn't it? Moreover, your heaven-forsaken tribe was destroyed by these guys back then. Do you think they will let your heaven-forsaken tribe off? Heaven Loathsome was expressionless and didn't speak. From afar, the long-haired girl suddenly lifted her head and looked at Yi Xian. You make me very angry. Yi Xian grinned. If you want to fight, then fight. Can you stop acting tough in front of me? As he spoke, he charged out. As he charged, a sea of blood light swept across the battlefield. In an instant, the entire sky was turned into a sea of blood. Bloodline power. From afar, the long-haired girl's eyes flashed with savagery. She suddenly opened her right hand, and a long blade appeared in it. In the next instant, she gripped the hilt with both hands, charged forward, and slashed down. Break! The blade fell, and the heavens and earth shook. Boom! The sea of blood was torn apart. Immediately after, a sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was sent flying. However, the long blade in the long-haired girl's hand was also reduced to ashes. Not only that, but her right arm was also sliced off by Yi Xian's sword. Yi Xian didn't fare any better. His body was split open, and there was a deep cut on his chest. His organs were visible. Both sides were injured. At this critical moment, the girl in the distance suddenly charged at Yi Xian. Obviously, she wanted to snatch the kill. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Yi Xian's eyes when he saw her charge at him, and he was about to attack. Meanwhile, Heaven Loathsome suddenly obstructed the young girl's path. The young girl gazed coldly at Heaven Loathsome. Fuck off. Heaven Loathsome suddenly vanished on the spot. A moment later, the young girl's pupils constricted, and she swiftly raised her arms to block. Bang! The young girl was blasted flying by a single punch from Heaven Loathsome. Heaven Loathsome was just about to follow up with another attack when she seemed to have sensed something. She suddenly turned around and pressed her right hand down. The expanse of space before her instantly started to seethe. Bang! A blood-red spike suddenly stabbed towards her. In the next moment, it pierced through that expanse of space, and then it shot straight into Heaven Loathsome's right hand. Bang! Heaven Loathsome was pushed over 30 kilometers back, and then the spike nailed her to an expanse of space. She defeated Heaven Loathsome with a single move. Bai Xiao suddenly said, "I surrender." Chapter 20-25. Surrender. Bai Xiao had wanted to join forces with Yi Xian, Heaven Gloom, and the others to fight against the Ancient Emperor and the others. But when the Ancient Emperor attacked, she lost all hope. How terrifying was Heaven Gloom! But he could not even take a single blow from the Ancient Emperor. Continuing to resist was just a pointless sacrifice. As for the woman in the plain dress behind Yi Xian, the woman in the plain dress could defeat Heaven Gloom, and the Ancient Emperor could defeat Heaven Gloom. Their strength should be on par. But her intuition told her that the Ancient Emperor was stronger than the woman in the plain dress. Why? Because the Ancient Emperor controlled the Green Xian sword. The Green Xian sword had been forged by the woman in the plain dress, and it could be controlled by the Ancient Emperor. The difference in their strength was obvious. Besides, the Ancient Emperor had not shown his true strength yet. He had defeated Heaven Gloom with a casual blow. A casual blow could defeat the powerful Heaven Gloom. What was there to play? In the distance, Yi Xian glanced at Bai Xiao. He had to admit he was a little surprised. In his view, the one most likely to surrender was Heaven Gloom. After all, Heaven Gloom was at odds with him and had no choice but to kill him. But he had not expected Heaven Gloom to not surrender. Not only did he not surrender, but he even helped him. And Bai Xiao had surrendered. Sometimes, life was like this. The way things developed was completely different from what one had imagined. From the side, the Ancient Emperor looked at Bai Xiao, his lips curling. Surrender? Bai Xiao nodded. The Ancient Emperor smiled. Why should I accept your surrender? Bai Xiao smiled and said, from what you said just now, I know that you'll leave some people alive so that this universe can flourish. In other words, you won't completely exterminate all the living beings in this universe, right? The Ancient Emperor nodded. Yes. Bai Xiao looked at the Ancient Emperor. Then I want to live. And of course, my people. The Ancient Emperor looked at Bai Xiao. Why should I let you live? Give me a reason. Bai Xiao smiled. My death will do you no good. My life can save you a lot of trouble. After all, I understand this universe better. The Ancient Emperor looked at Bai Xiao for a long time, then smiled. I accept your surrender. Do you know why I accept your surrender? Bai Xiao shook her head. The ancient emperor smiled. Because you are a smart person. I like smart people. Bai Xiao was silent. Ancient emperor turned to look at Mu Niannian, who was still trapped. Miss, if you are willing to surrender, I will not kill you. Mu Niannian looked at the ancient emperor and smiled. I don't like to surrender. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly took a step forward, and then she tapped the blood-red expanse of space in front of her. Boom! Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the blood-red spacetime directly turned into nothingness. Surprise flashed in the ancient emperor's eyes. You're really something. Seems like I've underestimated you. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward, and then he smashed his fist towards Mu Niannian. This punch caused the space in front of Mu Niannian to warp and be destroyed. In the distance, Mu Niannian suddenly opened her palm, and countless strands of sword qi surged out from her palm. In an instant, the space around her was covered by countless strands of sword qi. Boom! Countless strands of sword qi twisted and contorted at this moment. However, those strands of sword qi blocked all the power of the ancient emperor's punch. The ancient emperor frowned. In the next instant, he punched again. Boom! All the strands of sword qi shattered, and at this moment, Mu Niannian appeared beside Yi Xian. The ancient emperor looked at Mu Niannian. I've still underestimated you. Mu Niannian turned to look at Yi Xian. Do you want to leave first? Yi Xian said solemnly, are you going to stay and beat them up? Mu Niannian smiled. This person is very strong. Until now, he has not shown his true strength. I'm not confident that I can beat him. Moreover, the black-robed man beside him is also very strong. Both of them are not people that you can handle right now. Yi Xian looked at Mu Niannian. I won't let you stay here alone. Once, Sister Nian had died because of him. He had sworn that he would never let Sister Nian be hurt because of him again. Never. Mu Niannian smiled faintly. Sister Nian is not your Qing. Anyone can kill her in an instant. I dare not guarantee that I can protect you. Yi Xian smiled. I will face it with you. I will not be a burden to you now, will I? Mu Niannian looked at Yi Xian for a long time, and then smiled. You've grown up. At this moment, Heaven Loathsome's right hand suddenly gripped the spike. In the next instant, she pulled it out. Everyone looked at Heaven Loathsome. Heaven Loathsome's expression was ferocious. She looked up at the distant ancient emperor. Again. As soon as she spoke, her eyes suddenly turned a strange pure white. In the next moment, she leaped up and shot forward in a beam of white light. Boom! In an instant, the space within a radius of hundreds of thousands of li boiled. Yi Xian's eyelid twitched when he saw this. Damn, this woman is fierce. In the distance, ancient emperor's eyes flashed with surprise. You actually awakened the white eye, interesting. As soon as he spoke, he pressed his fingers together and pointed forward. Boom! The beam of white light was stopped by his finger. At this moment, Heaven Loathsome, who was within the white light, suddenly stabbed down with the ancient spear in her hand. Pust! This stab caused a sharp tearing sound to suddenly resound. Ancient Emperor's fingers suddenly clamped down on the ancient spear. Heaven Loathsome's eyes flashed, and she twisted her right hand. Boom! In an instant, the space within hundreds of thousands of li started to burn. As for Ancient Emperor, he was as solid as a rock. He didn't budge at all. At this time, Ancient Emperor's two fingers tightened slightly. Boom! The ancient spear shattered, and Heaven Loathsome was sent flying. When she was a few hundred zhang away, a hand caught her. It was Mu Niannian's hand. Heaven Loathsome looked at Mu Niannian, but didn't speak. Mu Niannian looked at Ancient Emperor in the distance and smiled. I think you must be very lonely. The loneliness of invincibility. Am I right? Ancient Emperor's eyes flashed with a strange light. I have to say that I really admire you. You are not only strong, but your wisdom is unparalleled as well. Mu Niannian smiled. I know someone. He is very strong. I think he can bring you excitement. Ancient Emperor smiled. Is that so? Mu Niannian nodded. Yes. Ancient Emperor looked at Mu Niannian. Then I must meet him. Mu Niannian smiled. I will take you to him. Ancient Emperor smiled. Then I will trouble you. At this time, Bai Xiao suddenly said, Sir, this person might be up to no good. Mu Niannian looked at Bai Xiao and smiled. Miss, you are smart, and you know how to pick sides. But miss, you do not understand this ancient emperor's mind. For an expert of his level, defeat is more than he can ask for. Bai Xiao looked at Mu Niannian, but didn't speak. From the side, ancient emperor smiled. Miss, you are right. In these years, I have roamed a few universes, but I have not found an opponent. If someone can defeat me, it will not be a bad thing for me. Mu Niannian smiled. Then let's go. After saying this, she grabbed Yi Xian's hand and turned to leave. As though thinking of something, Mu Niannian turned to Heaven Loathsome. Miss Heaven Loathsome, you come too. Heaven Loathsome pondered for a moment, then followed. From afar, Ancient Emperor smiled, then followed Yi Xian and Mu Niannian with his people. Bai Xiao was silent for a moment, then followed. Was the woman in the plain dress really stronger than Ancient Emperor? She didn't know. She only knew that she had no way out. The choice just now was a bet that Ancient Emperor was stronger than the woman in the plain dress. If she won the bet, then she and the Divine Wilderness tribe could survive. Not only that, but they would also be the only tribe in the Universe Origin realm that could survive. At that time, the entire Universe Origin realm would belong to the Divine Wilderness tribe. And if she lost the bet, Bai Xiao didn't continue thinking about this problem. From afar, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Sister Nian, are we going to the Milky Way? Mu Niannian turned to look at Yi Xian. Why are we going to the Milky Way? Yi Xian said solemnly, aren't we going to find Qing'er? Mu Niannian shook her head. Not going. Yi Xian was slightly stunned. Then who are we going to find? Is it Dad? Or Big Brother? But do you know where they are? Mu Niannian shook her head. I don't know. Yi Xian was speechless. If they weren't looking for Qing'er, or Dad or Big Brother, then who was Sister Nian going to find? Who else could kill Ancient Emperor? At this moment, Mu Niannian suddenly laughed. Don't think too much. You will know soon enough. From the side, Heaven Loathsome suddenly said, Sir, you don't seem to be weaker than Ancient Emperor. Mu Niannian laughed. You think too little of him. Heaven Loathsome frowned. What do you mean? Yi Xian also looked curiously at Mu Niannian. Actually, he could feel that Sister Nian was not weaker than Ancient Emperor, but she had no intention of fighting him. At this moment, Mu Niannian suddenly said, It's normal that you can't tell. After all, his current strength is far beyond the scope of this Universe Yuan realm. His spirit and consciousness have already become one with this Universe Yuan realm. Simply put, when he devoured the life energy of this universe, he destroyed the Tendo of this Universe Yuan realm, and he himself became that Tendo. Not only that, but he is much, much stronger than that Tendo of the past. If you fight him, unless you destroy and shatter the entire Universe Yuan realm, you will never be able to kill him. And if you destroy and shatter the entire Universe Yuan realm, then it means that countless lives in the Universe Yuan realm will be destroyed. Do you understand? Heaven Loathsome said solemnly, In that case, if he stands in the universe Yuan realm, he will be invincible? Mu Niannian laughed. You can understand it that way. Because he will not give you the chance to destroy the universe Yuan realm. Yi Xian wanted to say more, but Mu Niannian suddenly said, we're here. Hearing this, she stopped in her tracks. Yi Xian looked into the distance. Not far away, there was a grass hut, and in front of the grass hut was a garden. Which great god lived here? Yi Xian was curious. Chapter 20-26. At this moment, the door to the straw hut opened, and a girl walked out. She wore a simple dress, and her long hair fell over her shoulders. She looked quiet and elegant. And Yi Xian knew this girl. It was Miss Ding. Miss Ding was slightly taken aback when she saw Mu Niannian. Clearly, she had not expected Mu Niannian to come. Mu Niannian walked into the garden and smiled. Did I disturb you? Miss Ding looked at the ancient emperor and the others and smiled. You're too polite. As she spoke, she put down the flower basket in her hand and looked at Yi Xian. Come here. Yi Xian hesitated, then walked over to Miss Ding. Miss Ding smiled. Do you hate your father? Yi Xian blinked. I wouldn't dare. Miss Ding shook her head and smiled. If you wouldn't dare, then you must be holding a grudge. Yi Xian did not speak. He was not a brainless Xiao Ta who dared to say anything. When his father beat someone, it was no joke. Besides, he could not retaliate. Wasn't it natural for a father to beat his son? Miss Ding suddenly pointed to a stalk of grass. Do you see this? Yi Xian looked at the stalk of grass, confused. Miss Ding smiled. This stalk of grass has weathered countless storms, but it survived. Not only did it survive, but it's alive and well. As she spoke, she took out a beautiful flower from her flower basket. This is a peony. It's beautiful, but it can only survive in a greenhouse. In terms of vitality, it is far from this stalk of grass. I've told you before that your father's experience was completely different from yours. He grew up without a father and had to depend on his mother and sister. Later on, your grandmother also died a tragic death. His life was very bitter, but it was precisely this bitterness that shaped him. At this point, she smiled. Kid, you might think it's hard for you, but compared to your father, your life is like a cheat. Yi Xian was silent, but he asked in his heart, Xiao Ta, did Aunt Ding lie to me? After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, Master's life is indeed very perturbed. Moreover, his temperament is very unyielding, much more so than yours. He seemed to be very easy to talk to now, usually smiling, but that was because he basically had no opponents now. In the past, he was either fighting or on his way to fight every day. Burning one's physical body, burning one's soul, that was a common thing. As for you, young master. To be honest, although your enemies are a little abnormal, they didn't ask you to fight them. Every time you fight with your life on the line, someone will help you. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Are you saying that I'm just a second-generation heir? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, your question makes me speechless. Aren't you? Yi Xian, Xiao Ta continued, you and Master have one thing in common, and that is that both of you are very shameless, but you have done it to the extreme. Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said again, and there is still a difference in your personalities. Master used to be very extreme, especially after he activated his bloodline, he even killed his own people. But you activate your bloodline like you're drunk. What a showy show. Moreover, all you do is show off or brag all day long. Perhaps, this is the life of a second-generation heir. Yi Xian, at this time, Miss Ding in front of Yi Xian said again, he hopes that you will suffer more. This is a good starting point, but his method is not very good. Of course, this is also because he is not very good at communicating. Yi Xian nodded slightly. I understand what Aunt Ding means. I don't hate him, or should I say, I don't have the right to hate him, if not for him. Speaking up to this point, he did not continue. Because he realized that without his father, there seemed to be Qing air, sigh. This F** kept up life. Miss Ding clearly understood what Yi Xian was thinking, and could not help but shake her head and smile. At this time, the little girl who was holding the tattered doll in the distance suddenly said, "Are we here to chat with you?" Miss Ding looked at the little girl, and the little girl looked at Miss Ding, the corners of her mouth raised slightly, and a somewhat sinister smile appeared. "Your skin is not bad, if you make it into a doll, it will definitely be very good." Miss Ding said with a smile, "You may not have this chance." The little girl was about to speak, but Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Little girl, you better watch your mouth. You can insult the young master, but you better not be mean to my mistress." Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. "Damn, Xiao Ta, what nonsense are you saying?" The little girl glanced at Yi Xian's abdomen, and said mockingly, "What kind of trash are you? Are you even worthy to speak to me?" Xiao Ta sighed softly. "You idiot. You are comparable to that Tianyi of the past. Is he calling you?" Yi Xian, the little girl frowned slightly. "Tianyi? What kind of trash is that? How can he be compared to me?" Xiao Ta, at this moment, Ancient Emperor suddenly smiled and said, "Miss, where is the person you are talking about?" "Person?" The little girl's face was full of mockery. "They are just wasting time." As she spoke, she looked at Miss Ding and sneered, "Didn't you want to call for help? Hurry up and call for help. I'm waiting for you." Miss Ding glanced at the little girl and said with a smile, "All right." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly took out a small wooden sword, looked at the small wooden sword in her hand, and smiled slightly. In the next moment, a wave of Xian Qi surged into the small wooden sword. The small wooden sword suddenly trembled slightly, and in the next moment, boom! In the sky, space suddenly split open, and a sword light fell straight down. In the next moment, a man in green clothes appeared. He'd arrived in an instant. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched when he witnessed this scene. "Looks like Aunt Ding has a very high status in my father's heart. He'd arrived in an instant." Ancient Emperor's eyes instantly narrowed when the man in green clothes appeared here. On the other hand, Bai Xiao frowned. At this moment, a trace of uneasiness arose in her heart. However, she was slightly puzzled. Why wasn't the woman in a plain dress here? The man in green clothes walked over to Miss Ding, and then he grinned, "Are you all right?" Miss Ding shook her head, "I'm fine." The man in green clothes turned around to look at Yi Xian, "You're here as well." Yi Xian was speechless. "I thought you didn't see me." Meanwhile, Xiao Ta suddenly floated over to the man in green clothes, "Master. That little girl scolded mistress just now." Yi Xian's face darkened. "Damn it. This fellow even knows how to tell on me." The man's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard this, and then he gazed at the little girl who held a doll in her arms. "Xiaoyao, she scolded you?" Ding Xiaoyao grinned, "It's normal for children to be immature." The man in green clothes spoke indifferently, "Immature?" The little girl gazed coldly at the man in green clothes, "I scolded her." "Bite me." The man in green clothes was slightly stunned, "Is she that arrogant?" The little girl intended to say something, but a sword suddenly stabbed into her mouth. Bang! The little girl was instantly nailed to the spot while blood surged incessantly from her mouth, and she wasn't able to speak a single word. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. Ancient Emperor gazed at the man in green clothes while a rare trace of seriousness appeared in his eyes. On the other hand, Bai Zhao's expression had turned unsightly. The man in green clothes glanced at the little girl and chuckled, "That's it?" Everyone was speechless. The little girl gazed at the man in green clothes. She wanted to move, but she noticed to her astonishment that she couldn't move at all. Meanwhile, Ancient Emperor suddenly said, "Do you only know how to bully children?" The man in green clothes suddenly turned to look at Ancient Emperor, and then he flicked his thumb lightly. The sword in his sheath suddenly flew out. Ancient Emperor's pupils constricted, and then he took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. This punch actually caused the space in an area of a few million kilometers to split apart. At the same time, countless strands of mysterious energy surged out like a tidal wave and instantly converged into Ancient Emperor's fist. This punch had converged the energy of countless planes of space. It could be said that Ancient Emperor was one with countless planes of space. In order to defeat him, one had to possess strength that surpassed the strength of countless planes of space. Meanwhile, the man's sword arrived. Everyone watched as the man's sword sliced through the formidable energy like it was tofu, and then it stabbed into Ancient Emperor's right fist. Hiss! The sword stabbed into Ancient Emperor's body. Bang! Ancient Emperor's body shook violently like a deflated balloon, and countless strands of energy seeped out from within him. At this moment, everyone was stunned. Ancient Emperor was instantly killed with a single strike. Instantly killed? The long-haired woman and the black-robed man beside Ancient Emperor were also petrified. They had followed Ancient Emperor for a very long time, and in their hearts, Ancient Emperor's strength was invincible. Truly invincible. Back when Eternal Yuan Realm was destroyed, Ancient Emperor only made a move once. At that time, he only used one move to kill the strongest person in Eternal Yuan Realm at that time. Since then, Ancient Emperor had never made a move again. Because no one was worthy of him. But now, Ancient Emperor had been instantly killed with a single strike. At the side, Bai Zhao's face instantly turned pale. At this moment, she felt as though she had been struck by lightning, and her mind was blank. This terrifying Ancient Emperor was actually defeated with a single strike? She knew that she had lost the gamble. On the other side, Tian Yen could not help but take a look at Yi Xian. Damn, this King Kaoshan is really invincible. Ancient Emperor was also a little stunned. He did not expect that he would be killed with a single strike. He did not hold back in his punch just now, because the man in green clothes before him made him feel danger. And he did not expect that the man in green clothes' sword would be so terrifying that it easily broke through the power of his punch. At this moment, the man in green clothes at the side glanced at Ancient Emperor. That's it? Everyone, the man in green clothes suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian knew that this was not good. His father might be looking for trouble with him. The man in green clothes looked at Yi Xian. If you really want to cause trouble, can you make it bigger? Look at your enemies, so weak. Every time I come, I finish them with a single strike. It's really boring, don't you know? As he spoke, he paused and continued, it's really boring. It's like you've traveled hundreds of millions of star fields to kill an ant. Depressing. Everyone. Chapter 2027. Hearing the green-robed man's words, everyone's expressions turned strange. This terrifying Ancient Emperor was just an ant in the eyes of this green-robed man? Ant. Tian Yen glanced at the green-robed man. Father and son indeed, both like to act tough. However, this father was really awesome. Yi Xian was very speechless at the moment. Watching his dad acting tough, he could do nothing about it. This feeling was really uncomfortable. In the distance, Ancient Emperor looked at the green-robed man blankly. Who are you? The green-robed man glanced at Ancient Emperor and pointed at Yi Xian. Do you know that he is my son? Ancient Emperor shook his head. The green-robed man was expressionless. You know, and you still dare to bully him. Ancient Emperor's expression froze. Didn't you see me shake my head? If I knew that he had such a terrifying father, I wouldn't have dared to attack him even if you beat me to death. Although he was confident, that was against ordinary people. Against this green-robed man, he had no right to be so confident. At this moment, the green-robed man was about to attack when Mu Niannian suddenly said, "He is one with a universe. If you kill him, that universe," the green-robed man smiled. "Small matter." At the side, the black-robed man beside Ancient Emperor suddenly said, "Sir, we are from the demon meridians." The green-robed man looked at the black-robed man. "Demon meridians?" The black-robed man looked at the green-robed man. "With your strength, you must have heard of the demon meridians." The green-robed man shook his head. "Never heard of it." The black-robed man frowned. "How is that possible? How can you not have heard of the demon meridians?" The green-robed man smiled. "Are you trying to say that you have a powerful backer?" The black-robed man looked at the green-robed man. Yes. He knew that unless the green-robed man was afraid of them, they would die. The green-robed man smiled. "It's good to have a backer." With that, he paused. "Unlike me, I am invincible and don't need a backer." Sigh. The crowd, Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it. Since when was his father so pretentious? Meanwhile, the black-robed man suddenly said, "Have you really not heard of devil veins?" The azure-robed man smiled and said, "If I let you call for people, how long will it take for them to arrive?" The black-robed man stared at the green-robed man without saying a word. At this moment, the green-robed man suddenly shook his head, "Forget it. Don't waste time. Playing with you guys is really too boring." As soon as he finished speaking, the sword in his left hand suddenly unsheathed. Chi! Ancient Emperor and the others were instantly obliterated by a strand of sword energy. However, there were still two people left. One was Bai Xiao, and the other was the little girl holding the tattered doll. Bai Xiao lowered her head slightly. No one knew what she was thinking. The little girl looked at the green-robed man in horror, not knowing what he was going to do. The green-clothed man glanced at the little girl. "I hate people with cheap mouths the most." As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed with his finger, and then a strand of sword light shot directly into the little girl's chest. In the next moment, the little girl was instantly nailed into a spatial abyss. The green-clothed man said, "I'll nail you here for 1,000 years. If you're able to survive after 1,000 years, then that's your fortune." As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian. "Let's go for a walk." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "Dad, can you help me with something?" The green-clothed man shook his head, "No." Meanwhile, Ding Xiaoyao suddenly tugged on the green-clothed man's arm. The green-clothed man was slightly helpless, and Ding Xiaoyao rolled her eyes at him. The green-clothed man took Ding Xiaoyao's hand, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. "Tell me about it." Yi Xian's face darkened. "Damn it. My dad doesn't really want to help me." Yi Xian didn't think too much about it and said, "Dad, can you help big sister Nian improve?" Mu Niannian. The green-clothed man glanced at Mu Niannian, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. "My silly son. You underestimate this big sister Nian of yours. She doesn't need anyone's help at all." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The green-clothed man shook his head slightly. "Up until now, Miss Nian has the highest chance of attaining our level." Yi Xian gazed at Mu Niannian, and Mu Niannian blinked but didn't say anything. The green-clothed man continued, "She." At this point, he shook his head. "Let's not talk about Miss Nian anymore." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" The green-clothed man said, "Because your level isn't high enough, and you can't come into contact with some things. So, there's no point in telling you, understand?" Yi Xian was speechless. The green-clothed man glanced at Yi Xian, and a trace of pity flashed through the depths of his eyes when he noticed the injuries on Yi Xian's body. He hesitated for a moment before he said, It's not that I don't want to tell you, but there's no point in telling you now. Besides that, some things are only interesting when you discover them yourself. Life is life, and the life that others tell you about and the life that you've experienced are completely different. Understand? His tone was much gentler. Yi Xian nodded, I understand. The green-clothed man suddenly gazed at Heaven Loath and Bai Shao. Are they your friends? Yi Xian glanced at Heaven Loath. She's half. Half. The green-clothed man grinned. He opened his palm, and a strand of sword light entered the space between Heaven Loath's brows. Boom! An extremely terrifying and powerful aura suddenly erupted from Heaven Loath's body. Yi Xian was slightly curious. Father, what's this? The green-clothed man smiled. She's the one who broke the circle. However, she's at the end of her path now. I'm opening a new path for her so that she can save some time. As for how she goes and where she goes, it's up to her. Yi Xian's expression turned solemn when he heard this. This was equivalent to giving her a new lease of life. This wasn't a matter of saving some time. Because some people might not be able to find a new path throughout their entire lives. Moreover, could the path that his father had opened for Heaven Loath be ordinary? Absolutely not. This woman, Heaven Loath, is about to soar. Bai Shao glanced at the green-clothed man, and no one knew what she was thinking. The green-clothed man suddenly said, let's take a walk. Yi Xian nodded, all right. Both of them walked towards the distance. On the way, the green-clothed man suddenly smiled and asked, do you know where we are now? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, Xiao Ta said that all of you have been wandering aimlessly all day. Xiao Ta was stunned within his body. Holy shit! Did I say that? This young master is so inhumane. The green-clothed man glanced at Yi Xian and said with a smile, that's what you think. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, my master isn't an idiot. Otherwise, I would probably be beaten up. This young master is too dangerous. I have to be on guard in the future. Yi Xian suddenly said, Father, can you tell me how far away I am from the two of you? Or should I say, the distance between me and the two of you? How many realms are there in this world? Let me be mentally prepared. The green-clothed man was silent. Yi Xian frowned slightly, don't tell me you don't know either. The green-clothed man smiled and said, actually, this universe is a bit f***ed up. Yi Xian was speechless. The green-clothed man looked into the distance and said softly, your brother and I once tore through time and space all the way to the depths of this endless universe, but, speaking of this, he looked at Yi Xian, there is no end. When we tear a universe, a new unknown universe will appear. I can tell you this, from here, there are at least tens of thousands of civilized universes in front of us, and some of them are quite good. Tens of thousands of universes. Yi Xian's expression froze. At this moment, he felt that both his balls were hurting. Damn it! This was the rhythm of going crazy. At this moment, the green-clothed man suddenly smiled and said, actually, this is quite good. Do you know why? Yi Xian looked at the green-clothed man, and the green-clothed man looked into the depths of the universe. If we really reach the end of the universe and still don't find anyone strong, then the three of us will have a battle. Saying so, he looked at Yi Xian, the three of us claim to be invincible, but we need to fight to know who is truly invincible. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, Father, who do you think is stronger among the three of you? The green-clothed man asked in return, what do you think? This was a question that would lead to death. Yi Xian did not answer. He was not a brainless guy like Xiao Ta. The green-clothed man smiled and said, my sword Dao and your brother's sword Dao is different from Tianming's sword Dao. She is actually not just a sword Dao cultivator. She plays with everything. I have to say, in terms of talent, your brother and I are not as good as her. However, we have each reached the peak of our Dao. The only thing that can pose a threat to us is her sword Dao. Saying so, he shook his head slightly. I'll be honest with you. The three of us are confident that we can win and kill each other. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why? The green-clothed man's lips curled up slightly, because for now, we are really invincible. Yi Xian, the green-clothed man said again, however, we still don't dare to fight. I should say, Tianming and I don't dare to fight. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? The green-clothed man looked at Yi Xian. Because of you. We will only fight when we reach the end of the universe and make sure that no one can pose a fatal threat to you. But now, we have not reached the end of the universe. In other words, we are not sure if there is a powerful existence comparable to us in the depths of the universe. Moreover. Saying so, he frowned slightly. Some uncertain factors and the unknown are what we are most worried about. To put it simply, the stronger you are, the higher your realm, the more you know, and the more you know, the more you might have to worry about. As he said that, he shook his head. Actually, Tianming and I are a little envious of your brother. Your brother is really alone in the world. Damn, he's a bachelor. Whenever he thinks about it, he really wants to die. Let me tell you, he's wanted to look for Tianming several times. Do you know why I brought him along? I was afraid that he would not be able to resist looking for Tianming. To him, if he can kill Tianming, that's naturally good. If Tianming kills him, that's even better. And Tianming is also a hot-tempered person. If Swordsman looks for her, she will definitely do it. Saying so, he sighed softly. Your brother is a bachelor and does not care about anything. To him, death is a release. Anyway, he doesn't have a wife, so he is not afraid at all. But your father is not. Your father still has you and your brother and sister. I have to think about your future. Yi Xian was silent. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.